economic variables like total income, gross savings, total investment, general price level, and the like. They are called macroeconomic policy. So monetary policy and fiscal policy, these are the two broad categories of policies which are included in macroeconomic policies. So they normally, since they affect macroeconomic variables or the economic system as a whole, they have a special place in manipulating the macroeconomic sphere, and they also help the system, the economic system, in achieving certain important objectives like higher economic growth, full employment, price stability, exchange stability, and the like. So these are the basic objectives which the macroeconomic policies are designed to achieve. So then you may have a question, what are the need of macroeconomic policy? Why do we need macroeconomic policy? If we don't have such policies, what would be the problems? So macroeconomic policies, they are not new. They are of not recent origin. Rather, they are in operation since time immemorial. However, it was during the 1930s, during the Great Depression of the 1930s, their use was more extensive, because we have discussed the point that until the Great Depression of 1930s, the classical economic theory prevails, which mainly the classical economic policy mainly highlighted laissez-faire policy, which simply denies unnecessary intervention of the government. So that means the classical economists, they have advocated minimum state intervention in economic activities so that market mechanism can be freely operated to achieve different goals. So market mechanism, normally they have strong faith on market mechanism, and as I have discussed earlier, it was through price profit mechanism based on perfect competition that resources were said to be allocated in the capitalist economic system or the market economy. However, during the 1930s, during the Great Depression, the classical economic system get a rude shock. And the classicals, they have advocated wage cut as the most important solution to remove unemployment or achieve full employment. But when wage rate was reduced, wages were reduced to solve the problem of unemployment, the problem became more serious, because reduction in wages further reduced the aggregate effective demand. As a result, the problem that was created during the depression became more explosive. So it was at this juncture that Keynes has um, published his all important book, that is the General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, which have highlighted the role of government in maintaining aggregate effective demand at a higher level. And you have known that aggregate demand basically consists of two components. One is consumption demand, other is investment demand. So in a two-sector economy, in a closed economy, so to say, consumption expenditure and investment expenditure are the two most important component of aggregate demand. Keynes, through his psychological law of consumption, he has established, based on empirical evidence, he has established the fact that marginal propensity to consume gradually diminish with the increase in income. That means at a higher level of income, our marginal propensity to consume become less and less. So that means marginal propensity to save gradually increases when we have economic development, when we have uh, or we achieve higher economic growth, so that more income is ensured for the common man. So with rise in income, with rise in marginal propensity to consume, there arose a problem, that is deficiency of aggregate effective demand. So even if there is aggregate effective demand, the economic system remains in equilibrium, but that equilibrium is not full employment equilibrium, rather Keynes calls it underemployment equilibrium. So the classical assumption of full employment was replaced by Keynesian assumption of underemployment equilibrium. So Keynes explains the fact that when aggregate effective demand is less due to higher marginal propensity to consume, higher marginal propensity to save, the marginal efficiency of capital is less. So marginal efficiency of capital means the degree of simply we can say the prospective yield that we normally expect from a capital asset during its lifetime. This is marginal efficiency of capital. It basically depends on marginal marginal propensity to consume. Higher the marginal propensity to consume, higher would be consumption demand and higher would be aggregate effective demand. But Keynes has established that with every increase in the income level, marginal propensity to consume starts declining. On the other hand, marginal propensity to save gradually increases when the economic system reaches new heights. So that there is the danger of permanent over-saving gap, there is the danger of fall in aggregate demand, and finally, there is the dangers of depression. So depression will engulf the economy if proper ameliorative steps, if proper solutions are not taken up by the government. So Keynes has highlighted the role of government. Government cannot be silent in this situation. On the advice of the government, on the advice of the classical economists, when governments the world over remained silent, we have witnessed a catastrophe like the Great Depression of the 1930s, when all major economies of the world they were almost ruined. Say USA, UK, Germany, Japan, all the major economies of the world, they were almost ruined due to the Great Depression of the 1930s. So then the question is, how can we save the economy from such a situation? When the classical solution of wage cut failed miserably, what could be the possible solution so that we can check the menace of fall in aggregate demand, fall in marginal propensity to consume? So here lies the need for macroeconomic policies. So it was during the time of Keynes that fiscal policy rose into prominence. Prior to Keynes, there was no sign of fiscal policy. Fiscal policy measures were not used at all because the classical economists they were following the policy of laissez-faire, means governmental non-interference, limited role of the government. So naturally, fiscal policy was not there, but it was advocated by Keynes only after the Great Depression of 1930s to solve the problem of fall in aggregate effective demand. So then we will move on to discuss in brief what are the goals of macroeconomic policies. For which goal, for which objective these policies are used. Monetary policies are used as a part of the classical economic policies. Keynes has added fiscal policy. Keynes has not replaced monetary policy by fiscal policy. Rather, he was of the view that both monetary policy and fiscal policy can be used judiciously to deal with the problem of underemployment, unemployment, general price rise, and the like. So basically, there are certain main important objectives of macroeconomic policies. One of the most important one is full employment. The classical economists have assumed full employment as a normal situation. They have taken full employment for granted. That means classical economists argue that when there is a free market economy, there is perfect competition with limited role of the government. The economy always operates at the full employment state, full employment level. And they were on the basis of Sage law of demand, Sage law of markets. The classical economists argue that if there might be sectoral employment, unemployment, but general unemployment is not possible. And when there is sectoral unemployment, wage cut can be effective enough to remove the sectoral unemployment. That means sectoral unemployment means unemployment in some specific sectors, maybe in agriculture, maybe industries like that. So the classical economists they deny the possibility of underemployment equilibrium. But during the depression years, during the 1930s, their um, policy, their assumption of full employment was proved to be an illusion. So it was Keynes who have highlighted the fact that full employment cannot be automatically maintained. Problem of unemployment is always there. Problem of underemployment is always there. So in order to ensure full employment, we have to maintain aggregate effective demand at a higher level. And we know that full employment is a situation in which supply of output becomes inelastic. That means supply of output cannot be increased further even if there is an increase in aggregate effective demand. Full employment is a situation in which there is the absence of involuntary unemployment. That means productive resources are not available in this situation. So when there is even if there is an increase in aggregate effective demand, we are not able to increase production any further due to the absence of productive resources due to the absence of sufficient amount of productive resources. So, what can be done? This is a peculiar situation in which supply is unable to increase, but there is rising aggregate demand. So, naturally, what happens? What is the result? What is the end result of such a situation? So, the end result is hyperinflation. So, when there is the economy is operating at a full employment stage, rise in aggregate demand will lead to hyperinflation. So how can we solve the problem? So economists beyond Keynes and his followers, they were of the view that full employment cannot be automatically achieved. We can simply say that means the modern economists argue that if there is employment for 95 to 97% of the resources with unemployment of 3 to 5%, then we can simply say that there is full employment. So full employment does not imply 100% employment. The modern economists, they argue that if we have 95 to 97% of employment, then we can simply say that there is full employment. So how can we maintain full employment? So the modern economists, they argue that the judicious mix of monetary and fiscal policies, if both the policies are efficiently utilized, they can be very much helpful in maintaining full employment. By increasing the aggregate demand up to a higher level, we can be able to achieve this level of unemployment, which can be called as full employment. So full employment does not mean 100% employment. So in order to raise the aggregate effective demand, Keynes has highlighted the need for creating socio-economic overheads. Socio-economic overheads means socio-economic infrastructure. And you must have the idea that economic infrastructure are those facilities, are those services may be called, which directly help in increasing our capacity, in increasing the productive capacity of the labor force. They are directly helpful in promoting human efficiency. So they include roads, buildings, railway lines, power projects, canals. These are economic overheads. They are helpful in promoting efficiency of the labor force directly. And another set of factors include the social overhead, the social infrastructure. Basically, they are services which help the economy by creating a pool of skilled manpower. So that means social overhead or social infrastructure consists of those type of services which basically help the labor force in increasing their efficiency indirectly. They are helpful in promoting human efficiency of the labor force, but not directly as the case of economic overhead, economic infrastructure. They are helpful indirectly. So these include education, health services, housing, These three are the most important social infrastructure. And Keynes has highlighted the need for the government to provide these services. The social overheads or social and economic infrastructure, they are less profit. They yield less profit. Another thing is that their gestation period is large, higher. That means they yield results not in the short run but in the long run. So naturally, the private entrepreneurs, they are not interested in creating economic infrastructure. But nowadays, we have seen private educational institutions rising at a very high rate. So the situation has changed now. Private persons have come to provide education for their own motive. There are other motives behind creating such educational institutions. Maybe they show that we are giving services to the people, we are giving services to the mankind, we are giving services to the needy, we are giving services to the poor people. But this is the main motive is not this. Social welfare is not the main goal. Main goal is profit. So they are charging very hefty amount as donation. They are charging a hefty amount as a capitation fee. So now situation has changed to some extent, and government is also trying to um, distance itself from the provision of socio-economic overheads now. So now the government is saying that we are not here to do business. We are not here to provide, say, to create industries. Industries were created by the government because there was no private sector industries at the time of independence. So this part of the function of the government has now changed, and the government is now thinking, now it is professing the idea that government is not here to do business. So that means government is setting itself the responsibility of investing money in socio-economic overheads. They are providing education, no doubt. They are providing health services, but a large number of health institutions have also grown up in India, in Odisha as well. So their main motive is profit, not welfare. Mind it. So this is the main aim of monetary or macroeconomic policy, that is full employment. Another important objective is economic growth. So the macroeconomic policies are used to achieve higher economic growth. So what is growth and why do we need growth? What would be the situation if we do not have growth? So normally, economic growth and economic development, they are used interchangeably. Most of the people think that both have the same meaning, but this is not so. Economic growth is defined as a process whereby a country's per capita income increases over a long period of time. This is how we define economic growth. So a sustained and a continuous increase in the country's per capita income can be defined as growth, economic growth. If there is interruptions in between, then we cannot say that the economy is growing. That means for economic growth, we must have to ensure that the growth of the rise in the per capita income must be continuous. But what is about economic development? So it was felt that when a country achieves higher economic growth, when a country achieves higher national income and per capita income, but social welfare is not maximized because mainly it was due to inequality. So even if we are growing, even if our national income is growing, even if per capita income is growing at a somewhat lower rate, the fruits of development, sorry, the fruits of growth do not come to the needy. That's why economic growth, so now it is replaced by economic development. So now we are emphasizing economic development, not economic growth. So economic growth does not show or does not include, does not highlight the distribution aspect. The distribution aspect is included in economic development, and economic development is defined as economic growth plus social progress. So economic growth plus social progress, it can be rightly known, rightly called as economic development. So economic development can be defined as a process, as a long-term process in which a country's real national income increases over a long period of time, including social progress. So that means economic development, economic growth is a quantitative concept. It is reflected in higher per capita income, but economic development is both a quantitative as well as a qualitative aspect concept. So it includes rise in real national income as a quantitative concept. It also includes social progress, means progress in the field of education, progress in the field of health services. So these are social aspects. So when a country is growing, when a country is achieving higher national income, along with rise in education, promotion of education, fall in poverty, increase in equality, or measures that aim at ensuring equality. So all these things are reflected in economic development. So whatever may be, economic growth is necessary because without rise in national income, without rise in per capita income, we cannot need what we need. We cannot get what we cannot acquire what we need. So economic growth, naturally, why do we need economic growth? There are several aspects. We need economic growth because it fulfills the economic aspirations of the people. It ensures social justice. It makes the nation economically stronger, politically sound, and independent. Economic growth also determines the capacity of the nation to defend its borders. Economic development or growth ensures respect for the nation from the world community. So when a country is poor, when a country is unable to provide basic necessity to its people, then it cannot command respect from the world community. Further, Economic growth creates job opportunity for the unemployed. It reduces poverty. It is helpful in promoting employment. So these are the main objectives for which economic growth is highlighted as a important macroeconomic policy measure. So naturally, which factors regulate economic growth? So you might have a doubt that how and why we have were not able to achieve higher economic growth in India. So coming to that aspect, I can say that economic growth depends on a number of factors like natural resources, human resources, capital, technology, innovations and inventions, institutions. So all these factors they regulate economic growth of a country. So some economists have highlighted the role of capital accumulation like the classical economists, while others have emphasized technology. Classical economists have highlighted the role of capital accumulation, while economists like Harold Domar, Solo, they have highlighted the role of technology. Industrialization, Lewis have emphasized the transfer of excess labor force existing in the agricultural sector to be employed in the industrial sector so that we could achieve economic growth. This was the logic of Lewis. So others have also, there are economists who have highlighted the role of human resources. Others have highlighted the role of foreign trade and foreign aid in achieving higher economic growth. So that means we can simply say that the factors that mainly regulate economic growth include what? Natural resources, human resources, capital, technology, inventions and innovations, institutions. Human resources are the most important one. Even if we have latest technology, but we have no hand to operate them efficiently, then these things should be lie idle. So since the 1980s, there has been a change in public perception of economic growth. So that as we are discussing, so it was after 1980s that perception of progress was changed. Perception of economic growth and well-being of the people. Well-being of the people. So even if we have higher growth, well-being of the population, well-being of the people, well-being of the needy is not ensured. So higher economic growth in most of the in major less developed countries and developed nations were successful in raising per capita income. But economic inequality was also widened over the years. That means side by side we have larger inequality, we have larger concentration of wealth along with larger per capita income, higher per capita income. The experience of many developing countries show that growth does not necessarily or growth does not automatically improve economic welfare of the poor. So if a country achieves higher economic growth for years, it will not translate automatically towards higher well-being of the people. That means what can be done? So another most important thing is resource depletion and environmental concern. When we achieve higher economic growth by creating new industries, by the development of new urban centers, we are using natural resources extensively. We are cutting down trees, not in um, few numbers, lakhs, hundreds of thousands of trees. They are cut down in order to achieve economic growth. So we have cut down, we have cleared the forests to make roads, to make railway lines, to allow for power projects. So hundreds of thousands of forest areas they were cleared. Hundreds of thousands of villages where villagers were displaced for mining activities, for industrial activities, for the construction of railway lines, power projects, so on and so forth. So these things cannot be overlooked. These environmental aspects cannot be overlooked if we have to ensure economic development for long years. A new thing that has emerged today is sustainable development. So people are talking of sustainable development, not economic development. So earlier people were talking of economic growth before 1980s. After 1980s, people have started using the term economic development in place of economic growth. Now we are talking of sustainable development. So sustainable development means that plan of action which not only ensures rising per capita income today, but also rising income level for the people in the future generations. So that means this needs this highlights the need for resource conservation, not resource exploitation. Today we are exploiting resources. The rich people, the politicians, the powerful bureaucrats, they are earning hundreds of thousands of crores of rupees overnight by exploiting natural resources, by exporting natural resources. But the poor people who are living in the forests, living in the mineral belt, they are as poor as they were before 100 years. ତେଣୁ ଆମର ଯୋଉ ରହିଲା ଯୋଉ ସବୁ ବଡ ବଡ ରାଜନେତା ଧନୀ ଲୋକ ସେ ସବୁ କୋଟିପତି, the millionaires, the number of millionaires in India is rising fast. The number of poor people is also rising fast. So this is a paradoxical situation in India. Not in India, in most part of the um, third world countries, we find that a number of uh, rich people is rising. Their share in the national income is rising. So 1% rich people in India, they enjoy more than 20% of national income. 10% rich people in India, they consume more than 50% of national income. But 50% of the poor people, they have less than 10% of national income. So this is not sustainable development. The government is spreading the idea that we have achieved this and this. We have improved education, we have provided drinking water, we have provided electricity, so everything. But we are unable to solve the main problem. That is, we are unable to ensure sustainable development. So sustainable development is the real thing, the real goal. So another thing is, so that means for this, in order to achieve, in order to ensure sustainable development, we must include environment. Disregarding environment, we cannot achieve sustainable development. So another important objective or goal of macroeconomic policy is a price stability. Price stability. So price stability means controlling the general level of prices at a manageable level. Manageable level. Manageable level means 2 to 5%. If prices rise within the range of 2 to 5%, some says that 2 to 4% is helpful, and some economists say that 2 to 5% managing inflation within this range can ensure price stability. So why do we need price stability? What would be the problems if there is no price stability? So when prices remains unstable, unstable means when prices, there are two situations. If prices rise at a higher rate, if we are facing mild, not mild inflation, but hyperinflation, what will happen? Purchasing power of the, not of rupee, purchasing power of the people declines. The rich people, they manage, they have higher income. Inflation, as we have discussed, that inflation redistributes income in favor of the rich. So the rich people become richer during inflation. So there is no problem for them. It is the poor people who are adversely affected during inflation. Their saving capacity is reduced to the bottom. So as most of the people have low income or they are in the middle income group, rise in price level ensures or results in fall in savings. So fall in savings means fall or less in investable funds. So when saving is reduced, investable funds become less. We are unable to get sufficient investable funds to make investment. So that's why inflation is said to be economically harmful. During depression, prices fall. So then some people, sometimes we may remain in a puzzle. If prices rise at a higher rate, it is harmful. So then if prices fall, it would bring benefits for the economy. But this is also not the case. When prices fall, what happens? The profit margin of the businessmen, of the producers, of the entrepreneurs decline. So when their profit margin declines, they are less motivated to undertake investment activities, to carry out production. So when these people, they they are less motivated to carry out production. Employment will fall, output will fall. Workers find a problem in which they are unable to get employment. So these are the problems of falling prices. So it is said that inflation is economically harmful, socially unjust. Deflation is worse. How? Deflation leads to overproduction. Deflation results in fall in marginal efficiency of capital. So when you compare inflation and deflation, then deflation is the worst. Deflation is worse to inflation. Deflation ruins the economy, depression. Inflation, when becomes uncontrollable, leads to depression. Mild fall in prices is deflation. Maybe we call it recession. But when a recession moves further, it turns into depression. So depression is very, it creates a chaotic situation in the economy, for the economy. It has the ability to ruin the economy. So we need must be stabilized at a required rate. That's why macroeconomic policies, the policymakers, the economists, they always argue for maintaining the price level at a normal level. So this does not mean that prices remain unchanged. Prices are to be maintained at a normal level simply does not mean that prices remain fixed, unchanged indefinitely. So in fact, stable prices means stable prices if investment, it creates a situation in which investment opportunities are maximized. So we need a moderate rate of inflation for economic progress. Mild rate of inflation, that is called to need economic progress. So mild rate of inflation means 2 to 4% level. So whatever may be, inflation up to 4% is manageable. Beyond that, it creates problems. So hence we can simply say that price stabilization means stabilizing violent fluctuations in the price level. So if there is violent fluctuations, means prices rise at 7, 8, 10%. What happened is price level is beyond 11%. So when prices rise at a very high rate like that, it creates havoc in the business community. So we simply say that preventing violent stabilization, preventing violent fluctuations in the price level is called price stabilization. It does not mean arresting upward prices. Arresting price rise, along with arresting or checking price rise, we must be careful in checking downward movement in prices also. So price stabilization simply means not checking upward prices, but also maintaining price level At the normal 2 to 3% level, if prices fall below 2%, below 1%, this is also adverse effect, creates adverse effect for the economy. So price stability, how is price stability maintained? Price stability can be maintained using monetary policy alone, but also by using a mixture of monetary policy as well as fiscal policy. So both the type of macroeconomic policy must be followed so as to maintain price stability. So another thing is balance of a payments equilibrium. Another objective of macroeconomic policy is balance of payments equilibrium. So we have discussed balance, what is balance of payments, how disequilibrium is created in balance of payments, and what are the problems. So balance of payments simply means systematic record of all the transactions that a country has. So it includes the import and export of goods and services as well as inflow and outflow of capital. It also includes the payment and receipts of gifts as unrequited payments and receipts. So all these things are there, and if there is a deficit in the balance of payments or disequilibrium in the balance of payments, this is also, the economy is also adversely affected. So that's why C includes balance of payments equilibrium. So these are the basic aim of macroeconomic policy. So then we will move on to discuss in brief what are monetary policy, what are the monetary policy instruments. Then we will move on to discuss fiscal policy. So we have discussed the point that monetary policy refers to policies followed by the monetary authorities in a country to check, to manage the money and credit supply in the economy. It does not include the policies aiming at controlling money supply only. Monetary policy refers to those policies of the government, those actions of the government or the monetary authorities to regulate the demand for and supply of money and credit to fulfill certain objectives, to achieve certain goals. So all those actions, all those policy measures which aim at managing the demand for and supply of money and credit with the objective of satisfying different economic goals is called monetary policy. So monetary policy can also be defined as conscious actions undertaken by the monetary authorities to change the quantity, availability, or cost of money and credit. Same thing. So those policy measures which aim at changing the quantity, means supply, cost, as well as the availability of money and credit in different sectors of the economy. So then we will discuss the same objectives. Monetary policy has the objectives of maintaining price stability, maintaining full employment, ensuring economic growth. So ensuring equality, equal distribution of income. So these are the broad objectives are there. They are same both for the two categories of macroeconomic policies. But how the question is how the objectives are fulfilled, how the authorities manage the situation in which the desired objective is achieved. So then we will discuss the instruments of monetary policy in brief. We have discussed in our previous class also that there are two types of monetary policy measures. That means the monetary measures that are followed by the government, they are divided into two groups. One is the quantitative credit control measures or general credit control measures, and the other is selective credit control measures. The general credit control measures include the bank rate or the discount rate policy. We have discussed it in detail. Another is open market operation, the cash reserve ratio. So all these policies have already been discussed. We will not spend much of our time on that. I can simply say that during inflation, bank rate is increased so as to discourage people to take away large amount of make large borrowings. During depression, bank rate is reduced so as to encourage people to take more loans. And what about open market operation? Open market operation simply means open market purchase and sale of government securities. So when during inflation people have large funds, banks have large reserves, the government central bank sells government securities so as to wipe out the excess purchasing power with the people, the excess reserves with the banks. And during depression, the government purchases. This results in transfer of purchasing power from the central bank, from the monetary authorities to the people, to the commercial banks. And about cash reserve ratio, we can simply say, ତମେ ପିଲେ ଶୁଣିଥିବ ଦିଟା ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି CRR ଗୋଟେ SLR, statutory liquidity ratio, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା cash reserve ratio CRR. So before 1990s, both CRR and SLR, they were very high. They were at a high rate. But after that, due to the banking sector reforms, both CRR as well as SLR, they have now been reduced to lower level. And this is done especially when CRR is higher. That means the commercial banks, they have to maintain large percentage of their deposits with the central bank. This leaves less reserves with themselves, so as their loan giving capacity, the credit creating capacity will be less. When CRR is higher, the commercial banks have less reserves. They have to deposit a larger portion of their total time and fixed and current deposits with the central bank. That means their credit creating capacity will become less. So normally, when there is inflation, the central bank increases the CRR and SLR. They ask the commercial banks to deposit a larger proportion of the deposits which they collect from the people. During inflation, CRR and SLR are increased. But during depression, the opposite happens. CRR and SLR, they are reduced, so that the commercial banks will have excess reserves. This will increase their credit creating capacity. Okay. So bank rate or discount rate uh, is a very important traditional monetary measure to affect or to effect price stability. Then we will move on to selective credit control measures. We have also discussed it. Selective credit control measures include rationing of credit for different sector of the economy. The central bank directs the commercial banks to, they ask the commercial banks to demand for higher margin money, higher margin requirements. They restrict credit on higher purchase schemes. So like that. So higher margin requirements are imposed during inflation and lower margin requirements are enforced during depression. Other things are also there like moral suasion. The central bank imprison the commercial banks to take steps for controlling inflation so that national economy will be remain unhampered. This is moral suasion. Similarly, during depression, the central bank convince the commercial banks to take such steps which are helpful in recovery process. Direct action. Another aspect is direct action. If commercial banks do not obey, do not follow the guidelines prepared by the central bank, then it may impose sanctions on a commercial bank. It may also take away the license, cancels the license of a commercial bank as well in as an extreme form of control. So these are the monetary policies, central. These are the monetary policies which are normally used by the government to maintain price stability. And we have also discussed. You must have remembered that monetary policy are of two types. One is restrictive monetary policy or dear money policy, and other is cheap money policy or expansionary monetary policy. Okay. So restrictive monetary policy simply means tight money policy, higher bank rate, higher bank rate, higher CRR, higher reserve requirements. So these are the main forms through which restrictive monetary policy is effected in the economic system. Easy money policy means those monetary policy measures which aim at flow of excess credit with the public, with the central bank. So as a part of the cheap money policy, bank rates are reduced, margin requirements are reduced, credit rationing are withdrawn. So these are the aspects of cheap money policy. Then we will move on to discuss fiscal policy. ଆଉ କଣ ପିଲେ କାହାର ଡାଉଟ୍ ଅଛି ଯଦି କୁହ? ମନିଟାରୀ ପଲିସି ଆଉ ତାର ଅବଜେକ୍ଟିଭ୍ସ ଅଫ ମାକ୍ରୋ ଇକୋନୋମିକ ପଲିସି ଏ ବିଷୟରେ ଯଦି କିଛି କାହାର କିଛି ପଚାରିବାର ଅଛି କୁହ? So you are welcome to discuss your problems. ହଉ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଯଦି କାହାର କେତେବେଳେ କୋଉ ଷ୍ଟେଜରେ କୋଉ ସମୟରେ କିଛି ଡାଉଟ୍ ଆସିବ ଯଦି କୋଉଠୁ ତମେ ଆମର ଅନ୍ୟ ସୋର୍ସରୁ କିଛି ଜାଣିବାକୁ ଅସୁବିଧା ହେଲା ମତେ ଯୋଗାଯୋଗ କରିବ କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ. My door is open to you all times. You can call me anytime so that I would try my best to remove your doubts. ତଥାପି କଣ ଅଛି ଯଦି କୁହ କାହାର ଥିଲେ?
ନାଇଁ ସାର୍ କଣ୍ଟିନ୍ୟୁ କରନ୍ତୁ. ଯେତେବେଳେ ସାର୍ ଡାଉଟ୍ ଲାଗିବ ପଚାରିବ।
Okay. So in addition to the monetary policy that we have discussed, so the another form of macroeconomic policy is the fiscal policy, which was specially developed after the Great Depression of 1930s. So fiscal policy means policies of the government relating to its revenue and payments. So the policy of the government relating to its budget, relating to its taxation measures, relating to public expenditure measures, they are basically known as fiscal policy. So fiscal policy, we can say that fiscal policy means any decision of the government to change the level, composition, or timing of government expenditure. Okay, we can say that any decision of the government to change the level, composition, and timing of government expenditure as well as the tax rate, as well as the composition of tax, the tax structure. This is a fiscal policy. So that means those policies which the government takes from time to time relating to its public expenditure programs, relating to the tax structure, is called as fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is very helpful in achieving macroeconomic goals like higher economic growth. How? Fiscal policy is helpful in achieving higher economic growth. How? If the government follow expansionary fiscal policy, if government expenditure increases, then it will be helpful in maintaining aggregate demand, so that the danger of over-saving gap, the danger of underemployment equilibrium is minimized. So government expenditure normally during inflation, government expenditure is increased or decreased. During inflation, when people have sufficient reserves, when aggregate demand is at a higher level, public expenditure is reduced. Reduced means public expenditure on unproductive activities are minimized. Maybe war expenditure is minimized. Maybe unnecessary expenditure of the public authorities are kept at a low level, but not a reduction in productive expenditure is affected. Expenditure on economic and social infrastructure are not reduced during inflation. But during depression, public expenditure is increased. Government spend more and more money on different social welfare activities, on the construction of socio-economic overheads, so that money is transferred from the government to the public. Aggregate effective demand will gradually increase. As a result, the economy will be saved. जोटा ଆମେ ଶୁଣିଥିବ ତମେ ସବୁ ଯେ କେନ୍ସ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ ଡିପ୍ରେସନ ସମୟରେ କଳକାରଖାନା ତ ପ୍ରାଇଭେଟ ଏଣ୍ଟରପ୍ରାଇଜେସ୍ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରିବେନି. So it is the duty of the government to start industries. If the government, there is some problems and government is not starting industries, takes a lot of time. We cannot start industries within 1 hour or 1 week or 1 month. It takes years to construct large industries or farms. So in order to solve the problem immediately, ତୁରନ୍ତ ସମାଧାନ ପାଇଁ କେନ୍ସ କଣ କହିଥିଲେ ଯେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଡାକିକିରି କହିବ ସବୁ ଗାତ ଖୋଳ, ଯୋଉ ସବୁ ପଡିଆ ସବୁ ଅଛି ଗାଁ ଗଣ୍ଡାରେ, ବଡ ବଡ ପଡିଆ, ସେଠି ଗାତ ଖୋଳିବେ ଏବଂ ପୁଣି ଉପର ବେଳା ସେ ଗାତକୁ ପୋତିବେ। ଆଉ ଯଦି କିଛି କାମ ନାହିଁ, ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ରାସ୍ତାଘାଟ ତିଆରି କରିବାକୁ ସ୍କୋପ ନାହିଁ, କି କିଛି ପବ୍ଲିକ ୱାର୍କସ ପାଇଁ ସ୍କୋପ ନାହିଁ, ତେବେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଏଇଆ କର, ସକାଳେ ସବୁ ଗାତ ଖୋଳିବେ, ସେ ଗାତକୁ ଗଣିକିରି ପୁଣି ଉପର ବେଳା ପୁଣି ମାଟି ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ କରିବେ ଏବଂ ସନ୍ଧ୍ୟା ବେଳକୁ ପଇସା ନେଇକି ଯିବେ। କିଏ କେତେଟା ଗାତ
ସାର୍
ଖୋଳିଲା ସେଇ
ସାର୍
ଅନୁସାରେ
ଏଇ
ପଇସା ନେଇ
ଜିନିଷଟା
ଘରକୁ ଯିବେ।
ଡିପ୍ରେସନ ଟାଇମ ରେ ହେଇଥିଲା କି?
ହଁ ହଁ ହଁ, ଏଇ ଡିପ୍ରେସନ ଟାଇମ ରେ କେନ୍ସ କହିଥିଲେ। ଆଉ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଟା ତ ହଠାତ୍ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହବନି, ଇଏ ତ ମେଜିସିଆନ ଯାଦୁକର କଥା ନୁହଁ। ଆମେ ପାଣି
ନା ସାର୍,
ପକେଇ
ଏଇଟା
ଫୁଲ ଛିଞ୍ଚି ଦେଲେ
ଇମ୍ପ୍ଲିମେଣ୍ଟେସନ ହେଇଥିଲା ବୋଧେ, ବୁକ୍ ରେ କେନ୍ସ କହିଛନ୍ତି
ହଁ
ତାଙ୍କର।
ହଁ, ତେଣୁ କେନ୍ସ କହିଲେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ହଠାତ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇପାରୁନି, ତେଣୁ ତୁରନ୍ତ ସମସ୍ୟା ସମାଧାନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଆମେ କଣ କରିବା ନା, ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଗାତ ଖୋଳିବାକୁ କହିକିରି ପୁଣି ଗାତ ପୋତିକିରି ପଇସା ଦବା। ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି, ଆଉ ଏମିତି ସିଏ କେନ୍ସ କହିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଡୋଣ୍ଟ ଗିଭ୍ ମନି ୱିଦାଉଟ୍ ଏନିଥିଙ୍ଗ, ୱିଦାଉଟ୍ ଏନି ୱାର୍କ। କିନ୍ତୁ ଆଜି କାଲିକା ସରକାର ଆମର କଣ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ମାଗଣା ଟଙ୍କା ବାଣ୍ଟୁଛନ୍ତି। ଭୋଟ ଆସିଲେ ରାତିରେ ଟଙ୍କା ଜିନିଷ ପତ୍ର ବାଣ୍ଟୁଛନ୍ତି। କମ୍ବଳ, ସରକାରୀ କମ୍ବଳ, ଛତା, ଜୋତା ବାଣ୍ଟିଲେ। ଯେ କମ୍ବଳ ହିସାବ ବାଲା ପବ୍ଲିକ ମନି ଟ୍ରେଜେରୀ ରୁ ଗଲା କେତେ ଟଙ୍କା, 500 ଟଙ୍କା। ସେ 100 ଟଙ୍କିଆ କମ୍ବଳ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଦେଲେ, ଯୋଉଟା ମାଛ ଜାଲ ଭଳିଆ ହେଇଥିବ। ଏ ତ ସବୁ ଲସ୍ ଅଫ୍ ପବ୍ଲିକ ମନି। ପବ୍ଲିକ ଗୋଟେ ୱେଲଫେୟାର ସ୍କିମ ରେ ସେ ଛତା ବାଣ୍ଟିଲେ। ବିଲ୍ ହେଲା 200 ଟଙ୍କା, 50 ଟଙ୍କିଆ ଛତା ଦେଲେ। ଯେମିତି ସ୍କୁଲରେ ଡ୍ରେସ ପିଲାଙ୍କୁ, ସେ ବିଲ୍ ହେଲା 500, 200 ଟଙ୍କିଆ ଡ୍ରେସ। ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ତ ଆମେ ଯୋଉଟା ଜାଣିଛେ ପିଲେ, ଯିଏ ସବୁ ରହିଲେ ପଦ ପଦବୀରେ, ସେ ସବୁ ତାଙ୍କର ହାତ ଚିକଣ କରିବାକୁ ଲାଗିଲେ। ତେଣୁ ତଳୁ ଉପର ସମସ୍ତେ ଲାଗିଛନ୍ତି କେମିତି ତାଙ୍କର ବଟି ଆଦାୟ ହବ, କେମିତି ସବୁ ଅଫିସର ଧରା ପଡିଲେ ତାଙ୍କର ଏତେ ଟଙ୍କା ବାହାରୁଛି ତାଙ୍କ ଘରୁ, ଆଉ ଗଣିବାକୁ ଲାଗୁଛି 5 ଦିନ, ମେସିନ୍ ଲାଗୁଛି। ଦିସ୍ ଇଜ କରପସନ। ତେଣୁ କେନ୍ସ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ ମାଗଣା ଟଙ୍କା ବାଣ୍ଟନି, ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ କାମ କରିକି ପଇସା ଦିଅ। କିନ୍ତୁ ଆମର ଏଠି ଆମ ସରକାର ସବୁ ମାଗଣା ଟଙ୍କା ଦଉଛନ୍ତି, ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି ଲୋକ ସବୁ ଭିକାରୀ ହେଇଗଲେଣି। ଆଉ କଣ, ଲୋକ ଆଉ କାମ କରିବାକୁ କେହି ଚାହୁଁନାହାନ୍ତି, ଲୋକ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ସରକାର ଦେବେ ଆଉ। ଠିକ ଅଛି, ଆମେ ଦେଖିବା ତାହେଲେ ସେଇଠି ଯୋଉ ରହିଲା ଫିସ୍କାଲ ପଲିସି, ମାନେ ସେଟା ଚେଞ୍ଜ ଅଫ ଭିଜିଅନ କେମିତି ଦେଖ। ଫରେନ ରେ ମୁଁ ଯୋଉ କହୁଥିଲି ସେଦିନ, ଯୋଉ ପିଲାଟା ଆସିଥିଲା ସ୍ଵିଡେନ ରୁ, ସିଏ କହୁଛି ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ଥେସିସ୍ ମୁଁ ସବମିଟ କରିବି ୟୁନିଭରସିଟିରେ, if that is accepted, I will get a chance to study in the college. ସେଇଠି ସେମାନଙ୍କର in Sweden literacy rate is 99.9%, and all those people who are matriculate, they are counted as literates. But in India we count those people who are eligible to read and write, they are counted as literate. And the percentage of this group of people is 74. ତେଣୁ ଭାରତରେ ଆମର ଯିଏ ନାଁ ଲେଖି ପଢି ପାରିଲା, ନିଜର ନାଁ ଲେଖି ପଢି ପାରିଲା, ସେ ହେଲା ଲିଟରେଟ, ଏବଂ ସେମାନଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା ପରସେଣ୍ଟେଜ 74। କିନ୍ତୁ ସ୍ୱିଡେନରେ ସେମାନେ ମାଟ୍ରିକ ପାସ୍ କରିଥିବା ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେମାନେ ଧରନ୍ତି ଲିଟରେଟ, ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା 99.9%। So naturally, when a person is more educated, he will develop morality. ଆଗ କାଳେ 50-100 ବର୍ଷ ପୂର୍ବେ ଗାଁ ଗଣ୍ଡାରେ ବାଡିଆ ପିଟା ହେଇ ଟାଙ୍ଗା ଧରିକି ଶହ ଶହ ବାଡିଆ ପିଟା ହଉଥିଲେ। ଆଜିକାଲି ଆଉ ସେ ସବୁ ନାହିଁ। କାହିଁକି ନାହିଁ? ଡ୍ୟୁ ଟୁ ଗ୍ରୋଥ ଅଫ୍ ଲିଟରେସି। ପିଲାମାନେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ପାଠ ସାଠ ପଢିଲେ, ସିଏ ଏମିତି ନିମ୍ନ ସ୍ତରକୁ ଯିବେନି। ଏ ସବୁ ଯେତେ ସବୁ ଲସ୍ ଅଫ୍ ମୋରାଲିଟି ଆସୁଛି କୋଉଠି, ଲୋ educated people, they are engaged in all type of nuisances, disturbances.
କିନ୍ତୁ ସାର୍,
ତେଣୁ ସେ
ଏବେ
ହଁ,
ଏଜୁକେଟ ହେଲା ପରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଲୋକମାନେ କ୍ରାଇମସ୍ ରେ ତ ବହୁତ ଇନଭଲ୍ଭ ହଉଛନ୍ତି। କ୍ରାଇମ ରେଟ୍ ତ ବଢି ବଢି
ସିଏ
ଯାଉଛି।
ସେ ଯୋଉ ବଡ ବଡ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପିଲା ଯେ ଇଞ୍ଜିନିୟରିଂ ଗ୍ରାଜୁଏଟ ଆସିକି ଏଟିଏମ ଚୋରି କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ଏମିତି ଆସୁଛି କେତେ ଇନଷ୍ଟାନ୍ସ ଯେ ସିଏ କଣ ହଉଛି ସେଗୁଡାକ ଦେ ହାଭ୍ ଗନ୍ ଇନଟୁ ରଙ୍ଗ ଲାଇନ୍ସ। ତେଣୁ କିଛି ଖରାପ ବୁଦ୍ଧିରେ ପଶିକିରି ସେ ଯୋଉ ପିଲା ଡିଗ୍ରୀ ଇଞ୍ଜିନିୟରିଂ ପିଲା ଆସିକି ଏଟିଏମ ଚୋରି କରିକି ଧରା ପଡୁଛି ଗୋଟେ ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ସେମିତି ରେୟାର ଇନଷ୍ଟାନ୍ସ। ଯେତେ ଚୋର ବଡ ଧରା ସେଇ ଏଟିଏମ କାର୍ଡ ଚୋରି କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଟେକ୍ନିକ ଦରକାର ସ୍କିଲ୍ ଦରକାର। ସୋ ହି ମେ ବି ଦ ମାଷ୍ଟର ଅଫ ଦ ଗ୍ରୁପ ନା ନାଇଁ। ତେଣୁ ସେ ଯୋଉ ସବୁ ଏଟିଏମ ମେସିନ ଖୋଲିବା ସହଜ କଥା ନୁହଁ। ବାଡେଇକି ତ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଦେଲେ ବି ଟଙ୍କା ସେ କାଢି ପାରିବେନି। ତେଣୁ ତାର ଯୋଉ ପାସୱାର୍ଡ ୟୁଜ କରିବା କେମିତି ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ଠକିକିରି ତାଙ୍କ ଆକାଉଣ୍ଟ ରୁ ଟଙ୍କା ନେଇଯିବା। ସୋ ଦିସ୍ ରିକ୍ୱାର୍ସ ସ୍କିଲ୍। ତେଣୁ ସେଇ ଭିତରେ ସିଏ ପଶି ଯାଇଛନ୍ତି ଗୋଟେ ଭୁଲ ବାଟରେ। ଓକେ। So then we will discuss the objectives of fiscal policy. So like the monetary policy, we have the objectives, the same objectives almost. Higher economic growth, and higher economic growth can be ensured through the judicious application of fiscal policy. So we can simply say that if there is inflationary price rise, public expenditure is reduced, tax is increased, tax rates are increased, more taxes may be imposed, tax rates may be rationalized, so like that. But during depression, the opposite happens. During depression, government expenditure is increased. ସେଇ କଥାରୁ ଆମେ ଗଲେ ଛାଡିକି government expenditure is increased during depression and tax rates are reduced. Maybe some of the old taxes are um, withdrawn by the government so as to ensure more purchasing power with the people. So then another thing is um, mobilization of savings through public borrowings. So another very important concept is called public borrowing or public debt. So by using this policy, by using public debt, government mobilizes savings. Government takes away excess money from the public, from the banks during the inflation by selling government securities. So nobody likes to save money. Most of the people, they want to spend more and more. They want to enjoy higher standard of living. They want to follow their neighbors. But when government tries to mobilize savings, government cannot enforce compulsory savings because it will there is the loss, there is the danger of or there is the possibility of losing popularity. So government cannot enforce forced savings. Rather, government can follow the policy of voluntary savings, and this can be done by selling government bonds so that those people, those banks, those who purchase government bonds, they have to make payment to the central bank. As a result, inflation can be so side by side. Inflation will be checked and civilized saving is mobilized. So this is how resource mobilization takes place through public savings. Another thing is the same policy that is the same policy objective that is full employment. So fiscal policy can be used effectively to ensure full employment. So naturally, when there is unemployment, government spendings are increased so that more employment opportunities are created. So we have seen in India, government is spending hundreds of thousands of rupees on different employment generation schemes. So how these schemes are implemented, this is another aspect. But government is spending hundreds and thousands of crores of rupees every year in different employment generation and poverty alleviation schemes. So we know that employment generation schemes are of two types. One is self-employment schemes, other is wage employment schemes. Government जो employment schemes गुड़ा करे दी प्रकार गोटा हला self employment schemes. So self employment schemes are those type of schemes which increase income of the people by creating employment opportunity for them. This has also the potential of creating productive capacity not only of the individuals, the
एग्जाम्पल लिए थे
coach. So the self-employment schemes are not only helpful for the people, for the beneficiaries, by increasing their income earning capacity, it also helps the economy as well. So earlier we have a IRDP, Integrated Rural Development Program. This is a self-employment scheme in which productive activities are created, assets are created, so that people can get income, regular income from these assets. Jawahar Rozgar Yojana, JRY. Then another self-employment scheme was the self-help group scheme, which is presently used. Self-help group bank linkage scheme. So under this scheme, at least 10 women members, they start a self-help group. By developing regular savings and linking their group with the bank, they can easily avail bank loan without any collateral, so that they can utilize this money for income generating activities. ସେ ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ ସେଲ୍ଫ ହେଲ୍ପ ଗ୍ରୁପ ସବୁ ମହିଳା ମାନେ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ତାଙ୍କର ଆକାଉଣ୍ଟ ଲିଙ୍କ କରିକି ସେଇଟା ସବୁ 50,000 ଲକ୍ଷେ 5 ଲକ୍ଷ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଲୋନ ଆଣିବେ ବିନା କିଛି ବନ୍ଧକରେ। ତାକୁ ନେଇକି ସେମାନେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଇନକମ ଆର୍ନିଂ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟିରେ ୟୁଜ କରିବେ। ପୁଣି କିଛି ସୁଧ there is interest, provision of interest, so they will repay the money to the bank, and as a result bank will allow higher loans to them. So IRDP, JRY, ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଥିଲା ମିଲିୟନ ୱେଲ୍ ସ୍କିମ୍, ଚାଷ ଜମିରେ କୂଅ ଖୋଳିବା ପାଇଁ। So this self-help group bank linkage scheme, ପ୍ରଧାନମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ରୋଜଗାର ଯୋଜନା PMRY. This is a self-employment scheme in which educated unemployed people, youths, they are given bank loans without any collateral to start their own income earning activity. So these are self-employment schemes. So another group of schemes are called the wage employment schemes, in which
So,
government
sir,
uh,
so we can basically borrow money from the bank to self-employ ourselves. It was the
yeah.
self-employment program.
So we have to avail these facilities, we have to contact the district industry center, and on their recommendation, then we can apply for these loans in the commercial banks. And if the bank approves our scheme, then we can easily get the loans, so that we are self-employed. Okay. से सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट स्कीम रे हमको डीआई जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट इंडस्ट्री सेंटर तांका सहित जोगाजोग कला परे those viable, they will recommend the viable schemes to the banks. जो स्कीम टा viable सेटा को से लोन देबे। जने कहियो मो कार किनिकरी बुलिबी, एमती जने कहियो मो गोटे कार किनिकरी सब यात्री मानकु नवाणी करिवि, दिस इज नॉट viable। कि जने कहियो मु करिवि ଗୋଟେ ଅନଭାଏବଲ ସ୍କିମ୍, ଗୋଟେ ଟେଲରିଂ ଦୋକାନ କରିବି ମତେ ଦିଅ 5 ଲକ୍ଷ, ନଟ୍ ଭାଏବଲ। ବହୁତ ଟେଲରିଂ ଦୋକାନ ଅଛି ନା ନାଇଁ? ତେଣୁ ଜଣ କହିଲା ମେ ବି କୁକୁଡା ଫାର୍ମ ଗୋଟେ କରିବ କି ମହୁ ଚାଷ କରିବ। ତେଣୁ ସେ ସ୍କିମ ରେ ଆପ୍ଲାଏ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। ଡିଆଇସି ଯଦି ରେକମେଣ୍ଡ କରିବ ଯାହାର ନାଁ ତା ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କକୁ, ସେମାନେ ବ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ବାଲା ଲୋନ ଦେବେ ଆଉ। ଆମକୁ ସେଥିପାଇଁ କିଛି କୋଲେଟ୍ରାଲ ସୁନା ରୂପା ଏମିତି କିଛି ବନ୍ଧା ଦେବାକୁ ପଡିବ ନାହିଁ, କି ଡାଉନ ପେମେଣ୍ଟ ସିଷ୍ଟମ ବି ନାହିଁ। ତାପରେ ଯୋଉଟା ରହିଲା ଅଦର ପାର୍ଟ, ୱେଜ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ସ୍କିମ୍, ଦିଜ ଆର୍ ଦି ସ୍କିମ୍ସ ଇନ୍ ହ୍ୱିଚ୍ government provide wages to the people who are engaged in different type of public works. ଏ ଯୋଉ ରାସ୍ତା ଘାଟ ତିଆରି ହେଲା କି ପୋଖରୀ ଖୋଳା ହେଲା ଗାଁରେ, କି ପୋଖରୀ ସଫା ହେଲା, ଏଇଠି ଯୋଉ ଲୋକମାନେ କାମ କରିବେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ସରକାର ମଜୁରୀ ଦେବେ। ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ରେଟରେ ଯୋଉ ମଜୁରୀ ଦିଆହବ, ସ୍କିଲ୍ଡ ଅନସ୍କିଲ୍ଡ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଯାହା ରେଟ୍ ଫିକ୍ସ ହେଇଛି ମଜୁରୀ ୱେଜ, ସେଇଟାକୁ ସେମାନେ ନେଇକିରି କାମ କରିବେ। ଏଟା ହେଲା ୱେଜ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ। ସୋ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ on the basis of in the form of wages. So MGNREGS, the best and the largest wage employment scheme in the world. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So this is the largest wage employment scheme not only in India but in the world. So normally when government spends more and more money through the self-employment and wage employment schemes, so employment opportunities are created and we are able to solve the problem of unemployment and ensure full employment. Then economic stabilization. So the fiscal policy followed to control, to effect price stabilization is called contra-cyclical fiscal policy. Contra-cyclical fiscal policy. So normally what happens, if there is inflation, tax rate will be increased. If there is a persistent inflation, new tax rate may be imposed. Side by side, public expenditure will be reduced, will be, even if it is not possible to reduce public expenditure, it will kept stabilized during inflation. But during deflation, government has to increase public expenditure in the form of different self-employment, wage employment, and social welfare schemes as well. So then another form, another objective of fiscal policy is equality or reduction of inequality. So inequality is a social malady. If we achieve higher growth, but side by side, if the number of poor people increases, so the policy has no value. The measures, the schemes have no value. So that is, this type of situation is social inequality or economic inequality. And how can we deal with economic removal of inequality by using fiscal policy? So normally, when there is economic inequality, when there is huge concentration of wealth with the rich people, then the tax rate on the rich people are increased. Maybe income tax is increased so that the rich people have to pay more. So there are different type of taxes. You must have known that progressive taxes, proportional taxes, regressive taxes. These are three important forms of taxation. So progressive taxes are those which the rate of which increases with the increase in income of the taxpayers. टैक्स पेयर को इनकम बढ़िया संगे संगे जो टैक्स रेट टा बढ़ियो सेटा हला प्रोग्रेसिव टैक्स. So normally during the inflation, government government emphasizes progressive taxes. Government increases the tax rate so that income of the rich people, they are wiped out, they are taken away. But during depression, tax rates are reduced. ଆହୁରି ଗୋଟେ କଥା ପିଲେ ତମେ ଜାଣିଥିବ ଯୋଉଟା ହଉଛି ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟ ଟାକ୍ସେସ୍, ଇନଡାଇରେକ୍ଟ ଟାକ୍ସେସ୍. Direct, how can we define them? Direct taxes are those taxes whose impact, direct taxes are those type of taxes whose immediate money burden and final money burden fall on the same person. That means whose impact and incidence fall on the same person or same group of persons. It is not possible to shift the tax burden of direct taxes. So direct taxes are those taxes whose burden cannot be shifted onto others. Their impact and incidence fall on the same person or same group of person. Impact means immediate money burden and incidence means final money burden. That means if a tax is imposed on a person A and A finally pays the tax, he cannot shift the tax to B, C or any other. This is called direct tax. So income tax is the most important example of direct tax. Out indirect tax. Indirect taxes are those taxes whose impact and incidence fall on different group of persons. These taxes can be shifted either forward in direction or in backward direction. That means their impact fall on one person or one group, but their incidence fall on another group. These taxes are shifted. There is the possibility of shifting of indirect taxes. So naturally, direct taxes during inflation, when rich people have large purchasing power, so mostly the government increase the direct taxes, not the indirect taxes. Indirect taxes, in most cases, indirect taxes fall on the goods and services. Direct taxes fall on income and wealth. So if higher tax rate is imposed, higher indirect tax rate, if it increases, the prices of goods and services will increase. So normally the goods and services, they are consumed both by the rich people as well as the poor people. The rich people have more income, so price rise will not affect them much. But the poor people who have less money income, they think it very hard to deal with inflation. Okay. ତେଣୁ ଅଟା କିଲୋ 40 ରୁ ଯଦି ହେଇଗଲା 60 ଟଙ୍କା, ତାହେଲେ ଧନୀ ଲୋକଙ୍କର କିଛି ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ନାହିଁ, 60 ହଉ କି 80 ହଉ, ତାଙ୍କର ତ ବେଶୀ ରୁଟି ଖାଇବାର ନାହିଁ, ସେ ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ ଜିନିଷ ଖାଇ ନେବେ। ଗରିବ ଲୋକ କଣ ଖାଇବେ? ଗରିବ ଲୋକ ରୁଟି ନ ଖାଇକିରି ଆଉ କଣ ପଲଉ ଖାଇବେ ନା ଚାଉମିନ ଖାଇବେ? ସେ ତ ଆହୁରି କଷ୍ଟଲି ହବ। ବୁଝିଗଲା ପିଲେ? ତେଣୁ ଯୋଉ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ରେଟ୍ ସେ ସାଧାରଣତଃ ଯୋଉ during inflation, direct taxes are increased, progressive taxes are followed. During depression, regressive taxes are helpful. हाँ कुह पिले कौन कहबो कि? Hello.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So these are the economic inequality can be achieved by following progressive taxes. But if the tax system of a country consists of regressive taxes, then economic equality will not be ensured, rather economic inequality will increase. ତେଣୁ ସେ ତ ବହୁତ କଥା ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟ ହିସାବରେ ତମମାନେ ଜାଣିପାରୁଥିବ ଯେ ଏବେ ସରକାର ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ରେଟ୍ କୁ କଣ କଲେ? ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ଏବେ ବଜେଟ ହେଲା ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ରେଟ୍ କଣ ହେଲା? ଇନକମ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ରେଟ୍ କୁ ସରକାର କଣ କଲେ? କମେଇ ଦେଲେ ନା ଅଧିକା କଲେ ନା କଣ କଲେ? ବଜେଟ ଦେଖିଥିବ ପ୍ରପୋଜାଲ। ସେ ଗୋଟେ ଅଛି ରେଟ୍ ତ ଯାହା ରେଟ୍ ଗୁଡା ରାସନାଲାଇଜ କଲେ। ଆଗରୁ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ରେଟ୍ ଟା ଥିଲା 5%, 3 ରୁ 5 ଲକ୍ଷ। Those people who have an income between 3 to 5 lakh, they were to deposit 5% tax rate. Then 5 to 7 lakh, 10%. Beyond 7 lakh, 7 to 10, 20%. Beyond 10 lakh, 30%. This was the tax rate earlier. But now they have rationalized it. 3 to 7 lakh, 10%. 7 to 10 lakh, 15%. 10 to 15 lakh, 5, 10, 15, 20 ଏମିତି ସେ ସ୍ଲାବକୁ ଲମ୍ବେଇ ଦେଲେ। ଏଟା rationalization of tax rate ହେଲା। This budget, the budget during the budget 2025, 26, people with the standard deduction has increased. The tax limit has been extended. ଆଗରୁ ଯୋଉ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ଲିମିଟ ଟା ଥିଲା କେତେ 7 ଲକ୍ଷ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ନଥିଲା। ଏବେ ସରକାର ସେଟା 12 ଲକ୍ଷ ପାଇଁ ବଢେଇ ଦେଲେ। ତା ଅର୍ଥ କଣ ହେଲା? କିଛି ଲୋକ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଡାଇରେକ୍ଟ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ଆଗରୁ ଦଉଥିଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଆଉ ଏବେ ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ଦବାକୁ ପଡିବନି। They were kept out of the tax net. That means number of persons who were in the tax net, they were now left free. So government will lose revenue. ଏଗୁଡା ସବୁ ତମେ ଦେଖିଲେ ଜାଣିପାରିବ ସବୁ ବହୁତ ଜିନିଷ। ତେଣୁ ଏବେ ଆମେ ଦେଖିନେବା जो फिस्काल पॉलिसी मेजर सब कौन कौन अच्छी हमें तो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स गुड़ा देखिले एबे गोटे देखिया there are different instruments of fiscal policy. Tax is a instrument, public expenditure is an instrument of fiscal policy. So another important instrument is compensatory fiscal policy. Compensatory fiscal policy सुनिथिबो नाते देखो म कहि दउची. So a very important instrument of fiscal policy is the compensatory fiscal policy, which simply aims at continuously compensating the economy against chronic tendencies towards inflation and deflation by manipulating the public expenditure and taxes. So compensatory fiscal policy mainly consists of a policy in which public expenditure and taxes are manipulated continuously to keep the economic system away from the dangers of inflation and deflation. So that means in order to control inflation and deflation, the government takes steps by manipulating, by changing public expenditure and the taxes. So the policies which we have discussed in our discussion, these are known as a compensatory fiscal policy. So if there is inflation, government increases the tax rate, side by side it reduces public expenditure or it minimizes wasteful government expenditure. Government expenditure je ସବୁ ଗୁଡାକ productive ତା ନୁହଁ. Government expenditure ବି ସେଟା ଅନପ୍ରଡକ୍ଟିଭ ଏକ୍ସପେଣ୍ଡିଚର ବି ଅଛି। ଆମେ ଦେଖିଛେ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀଙ୍କ ଘରେ ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ ତିଆରି ହେଇଛି। ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବିଦା ହେଇଗଲେ ସେ ଭାଙ୍ଗି ଦେଇଗଲେ ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ, ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଘର ସବୁ ତିଆରି କରିଥିଲେ ଭାଙ୍ଗିଦେଲେ ଲୋକ ଲଗେଇକିରି। ଏଇ ରିସେଣ୍ଟ ଘଟଣା ଦେଖୁଥିବ ଶୁଣିଥିବ। କିରେ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀଙ୍କ ଘରେ ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ କାହା ପଇସାରେ ହଉଛି? ନ୍ୟାଚୁରାଲି ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ତାଙ୍କ ପଇସାରେ
ଲୋକଙ୍କ
କରିନାହାନ୍ତି
ପଇସାରେ
ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ। ବାସ୍
ସାର୍
ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପଇସାରେ,
ପଇସା।
ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପଇସାକୁ ହଡପ କରିକି ସେ ଭାବିଥିଲେ ଆମେ ଆଉ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀରୁ ଜମା ଯିବୁନି। ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପଇସାକୁ ନେଇକି ସେ ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ ତାଙ୍କର ପାର୍କରେ 40 ଜଣ ଲୋକ ଲାଗିକିରି ପାର୍କ ତିଆରି ହବ, ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ ହବ, ମାଲିସ କରିବାକୁ ଲୋକ ରହିବେ, ସବୁ ହଉଛି ଲୋକଙ୍କ ପଇସା। ଦିସ୍ ଇଜ ମିସୟୁଜ ଅଫ ପବ୍ଲିକ ମନି। ଅନପ୍ରଡକ୍ଟିଭ ପବ୍ଲିକ ଏକ୍ସପେଣ୍ଡିଚର ୟାକୁ କହିବା। ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀଙ୍କ ଲାଟିନରେ ପାଇଖାନାରେ ଲାଗିବ, ଟଏଲେଟରେ ଲାଗିବ ଏସି। These are unnecessary, unproductive expenditure. ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀଙ୍କ ଘରେ ଗୋଟେ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର କ୍ୱାର୍ଟରକୁ ଯିବ, 10ଟାରୁ 15ଟା ଏସି ଲାଗିଥିବ। ଇଲେକ୍ଟ୍ରିକ ବିଲ୍ କିଏ ଦବ? ଲୋକ ଗାଁ ଗହଳିରେ ଗରମରେ ଘାଣ୍ଟି ହେଉଛନ୍ତି, ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଲାଇନ ନାହିଁ, ପାୱାର କଟ ହଉଛି। ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀଙ୍କର ଟଏଲେଟରେ ଏସି ଲାଗିଛି। So this is called unproductive expenditure, and during inflation such expenditures are minimized, but it is the government who implements things, so they cannot reduce their own expenditure. ଏ ବଜେଟ କିଏ କରୁଛି? ତମେ ଦେଖୁଥିବ ଏବେ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଏମଏଲଏଙ୍କର ଭତ୍ତା ବଢିଗଲା, ପିଲା ଚାକିରି ପାଉନାହାନ୍ତି, ଯୋଉ କଣ୍ଟ୍ରାକ୍ଚୁଆଲ ସବୁ ଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଚାଲିଛି। But without any hassle, without any disturbance, the members of Odisha Legislative Assembly, they have raised their salary, they have raised their allowances without knowing, without public knowledge. ତେଣୁ କେହି ଆମେ ଜାଣିପାରିଲେନି ସରକାର ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ମାନଙ୍କର ଦରମା ଭତ୍ତା ସବୁ ବଢିଗଲା, କାହିଁକିନା ସେଟା ନିଜେ ସେ ତିଆରି କରୁଛନ୍ତି। କିନ୍ତୁ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବେକାରୀ ପିଲା ସବୁ ଯାଇକି ରାସ୍ତାରେ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରାଇକ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, କି ସେ ସ୍କୁଲ ଶିକ୍ଷକ ମାନେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ରେଗୁଲାରାଇଜ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରାଇକ କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ସମସ୍ତେ ଜାଣୁଛନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ପଇସା ନାହିଁ। ଦରମା ବଢିବାକୁ 5,000ରୁ 10,000 କରିବାକୁ ପଇସା ନାହିଁ। ହୋମ ଗାର୍ଡ ସବୁ 10,000 15,000 ଚାକିରି କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ତାଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଆଉ ପଇସା ନାହିଁ। So it is the policy makers, if they do blunder, so who will save the system? So naturally such unproductive public expenditures have to be controlled if we want to save our economy from the clutches of inflation. But during depression, public expenditure increases, tax rates are reduced. So this manipulation of tax and public expenditure is known as a compensatory fiscal policy. ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ତମେ ପିଲେ ଶୁଣିଥିବ, built in stabilizers. Built-in stabilizers means automatic adjustment of expenditure and taxes in relation to cyclical upswings and downswings with the economy without any deliberate action on the part of the government. That means under the built-in stabilizer system, the tax rates are so fixed that in the upward phase of trade cycle, with the increase in national income, the tax yield would automatically go up at a faster rate without changes in the tax rate. At the same time, government expenditures on relief, unemployment benefits are also go down automatically with the rise in national income. So if the tax rates, if the tax structure is so formed that with the rise in money income, national income, tax yield automatically increases, and during depression, tax rate is automatically reduced. tax yield is automatically reduced, and government expenditures are automatically increased during depression and automatically reduced during inflation. These policy measures are known as built-in stabilizers. That means they involve automatic adjustment of public expenditure and taxes during the time of business upswings and business downswings. ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ concept ଅଛି fiscal policy ରେ discretionary action or discretionary fiscal policy. So discretionary fiscal policy consists of deliberate changes in the government budget by such actions as changing tax rates, government expenditure, or both. So this we can take the example of changing taxes without no change in government expenditure, changing government expenditure with taxes constant, or changing both taxes and government expenditure simultaneously. So this is called discretionary fiscal policy. So such fiscal policy are at the discretion of the government or the monetary authorities. So these are the another important concept which are very much helpful for you is the principle of functional finance. ଶୁଣିଥିବ ନାଁଟା? So compensatory fiscal policy. So compensatory fiscal policy has been named as principle of functional finance by A.P. Lerner. So Dr. A.P. Lerner has developed the concept of functional finance that rejects the traditional doctrine of sound finance and the principle of balancing the budget. ମନେ ରଖିଥିବ ଗୋଟେ କଥା, the classical economists were arguing in favor of limited role of the government. They were also arguing for balanced budget. They also stressed the need for a surplus budget. So normally the classicals, they were in favor of minimum state intervention and balanced budget. But now the policy has changed. Now balanced budget cannot ensure economic growth. If a budget is balanced, government spends money on the basis of at par with the revenue it earns, then there cannot be progress. ଆଉଟା ଯୋଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ଯେ ସମସ୍ତେ କହନ୍ତି, କିଛି ଲୋକ କହନ୍ତି loan per head loan of Odisha government has increased to 2 lakh. ଆଉ କହନ୍ତି କିଛି ଲୋକ ଶୁଣିଥିବ, government of Odisha has taken a loan of 20,000 crores from the open market. These are not bad for the economy. These are necessary for economic growth. Since our is a small state, since the revenue of the government is less, there is the difficulty in creating infrastructure with our limited resources. So in order to develop our infrastructure, we need loans. But these loans must be effectively utilized. So that is the role of the government, that is the duty of the authorities to see that the loan amount is efficiently utilized. There is not malallocation of resources. ତେଣୁ ସରକାରଙ୍କ ଟଙ୍କା ସରକାର ଭାବୁଛନ୍ତି ଆମେ ଯାହା ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିବୁ ସେଇଟା ଆମର ଅଧିକାର, ତେଣୁ ସିଏ ତାଙ୍କ ମନ ଇଚ୍ଛା ଘର କଲେ, କିଏ ଏଇଠି ଯାହା କଥାଟା ଆମେ ତ ଦେଖିନେ, ସେଇ ଯୋଉ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀଙ୍କ ଘର ଭଙ୍ଗା ହେଲା, ସେ ସୁଇମିଂ ପୁଲ ହେଇଥିଲା, ଆହୁରି କଣ ତା ଭିତରେ ହେଇଥିଲା। When the government is autocratic in nature, when the government thinks that people are not able to change us, we will enjoy political power permanently, so they will do such things. So we are discussing functional finance. So functional finance means government expenditure, taxation, borrowing should be made, should be these policies or policies relating to expenditure, taxation, borrowing should be used in such a manner so that unemployment is eliminated and inflation is controlled. So functional finance rejects the traditional doctrine of sound finance. Sound finance means spending money within budget, within revenue of the government. ତାର ତ ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁକୁ ଦେଖିକିରି ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିବା, ଆମେ ଲୋନ କରିବା ନାହିଁ। ଏଇଟା ହଉଛି ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ଫାଇନାନ୍ସ, ଯେଟା ଆଗରୁ ଯୋଉ ଥିଲା କ୍ଲାସିକାଲ ପଲିସିଙ୍କର, କ୍ଲାସିକାଲ ଇକୋନୋମିଷ୍ଟ ମାନଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଆଇଡିଆ। ବାଲାନ୍ସ ବଜେଟ, they always argue for balanced budget. Budget should be balanced, but we cannot make progress by balancing our budget every time. ଆହୁରି ଗୋଟେ କଥା ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ପିଲେ କହୁଛି, ଏଇଟା ଆମେ ବି ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ର ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟ ହେଲେ ବି ଆମେ ପଲିଟିକ୍ସ ଭିତରେ ଆମର କିଛି ଧାରଣା ରହିବା ଦରକାର। କଂଗ୍ରେସ ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଯୋଉ ବହୁତ 20-25 ବର୍ଷ ରହିଲେ ଜାନକୀ ବଲ୍ଲଭ ପଟ୍ଟନାୟକଙ୍କ ସମୟରେ, ତମମାନେ ପିଲା ହେଇଥିବ। So this government, the Congress government, continuously prepared surplus budget for years to satisfy the center. Congress government was also at the center. ସେତେବେଳେ କେନ୍ଦ୍ରରେ ସରକାର ଥିଲା କଂଗ୍ରେସ ସରକାର, ରାଜ୍ୟରେ ବି ଥିଲା କଂଗ୍ରେସ ସରକାର। ତେଣୁ କେନ୍ଦ୍ର ସରକାରଙ୍କୁ ଖୁସି କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଓଡିଶା ସରକାର କଣ କଲେ, ବର୍ଷ ପରେ ବର୍ଷ ସବୁ ବଳକା ବଜେଟ ତିଆରି କଲେ। ଆଚ୍ଛା, ବଳକା ବଜେଟ ତିଆରି କଲେ ବୋଲେ କେମିତି କରିବେ ସେଟା? ତାର ତ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କଲେନି। ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଏକ୍ସପେଣ୍ଡିଚର ୱାଜ ଲିମିଟେଡ। ସରକାର ରାସ୍ତାଘାଟ, ସ୍କୁଲ, କଲେଜ, କଳ କାରଖାନା କିଛି କଲେନି। ଖାଲି ଯାହା ଟ୍ୟାକ୍ସ ଆଦାୟ କଲେ ତା ଦେହରେ ଟିକେ ରଙ୍ଗଚୂନ ମାରିକିରି ସରକାରୀ ଅଫିସ ସେଇଠି ବସିଲେ, କେନ୍ଦ୍ରକୁ ଦେଖେଇଲେ ଆମର ବଳକା ବଜେଟ, ୱି ଡୁ ନଟ ନିଡ ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ହେଲ୍ପ, ଆମର କେନ୍ଦ୍ର ସରକାରଙ୍କ ସହାୟତା ଦରକାର ନାହିଁ। ତେଣୁ ସେ ଗୋଟା ଖୁସି ହେଇକିରି ଯାହା ଓଡିଶା ଗୋଟା ରାଜ୍ୟ ଯିଏକି ଆମକୁ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ ମାଗୁନି, ସାର୍ଟିଫିକେଟ ଗୋଟେ ଦେଲା। ଫଳ କଣ ହେଲା? ଓଡିଶା became a poor state. We have different type of natural resources. We have iron ore and coal deposits, which is almost half of the deposits in the country. But what we have achieved? We were unable to create a POSCO. ଗୋଟେ ପୋସ୍କୋ କାରଖାନା ହବ ବୋଲି ବହୁତ ଦିନ ଧରି ଲାଗି ରହିଥିଲା, ସେ ସମୟରେ ହେଇପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ ପଲିଟିକାଲ କ୍ରାଇସିସ୍ ଯୋଗୁଁ। ତେଣୁ ସେ ଯୋଉ 20 ବର୍ଷ କଂଗ୍ରେସ ସରକାର ଶାସନ କଲେ, ବଳକା ବଜେଟ ତିଆରି କଲେ, ଓଡିଶା ଇମ୍ପ୍ରୁଭ କରିପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ। ଓଡିଶା ସବୁଠୁ ଗରିବ ରାଜ୍ୟ ଥିଲା। ମୋଷ୍ଟ ପୋରେଷ୍ଟ ଷ୍ଟେଟ ଅଫ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ୱାଜ ଓଡିଶା, ଡ୍ୟୁ ଟୁ ଦିଜ ପଲିସିଜ। ସେ ଟ୍ରାଡିସନାଲ ପଲିସି, କ୍ଲାସିକାଲଙ୍କ ପଲିସି କି ଧଇଲେ, ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ଫାଇନାନ୍ସ, ବାଲାନ୍ସଡ ବଜେଟ, ସରପ୍ଲସ ବଜେଟ। So we could not achieve much. Our economy was backward. For most of the periods, there was overdraft. ସେଇ ସମୟର କଥା ମୋର ବି ମନେ ଅଛି। ଆମକୁ ଦରମା ପାଇଲା ବେଳକୁ, ଧର ଜାନୁଆରୀ ମାସର ଦରମା ପାଇଲା ବେଳକୁ ଫେବୃଆରୀ ମାର୍ଚ୍ଚ ହେଇଯିବ। ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ସରକାର ଆଉ 12 ମାସର ଦରମା ଦେଇପାରିବନି, 2 ମାସର ଦରମା ବାକି ରହିଲା କର୍ମଚାରୀଙ୍କର। ଓଭରଡ୍ରାଫ୍ଟ ହେଇଥିବ ପରା, ଯେତିକି ଓଭରଡ୍ରାଫ୍ଟ ବୋଲେ ସରକାରଙ୍କ ଯେତିକି ପଇସା ଅଛି ତାଠୁ ଅଧିକା ବିଲ୍ ହେଉଛି। ତେଣୁ ବର୍ଷକେ ହୁଏତ 10-12 ଥର ସେ ଓଭରଡ୍ରାଫ୍ଟ ହଉଥିବ, 12 ମାସକେ 10 ଥର ଓଭରଡ୍ରାଫ୍ଟ। ଗୋଟେ ସମୟ when BJD government came to power, they have managed the economy somewhat effectively. ଇଫେକ୍ଟିଭଲି ୟୁଟିଲାଇଜ କଲେ ସେ ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ ମାଇନ୍ସ ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ ଟାକୁ ଆଣିକି ୟୁଜ କଲେ, ଯାହା ଫଳରେ କି ଓଭର ଡ୍ରାଫ୍ଟଟା ଉଠିଗଲା। ଓଡିଶା ବିକେମ୍ ସାଉଣ୍ଡ ଇନ୍ ଫାଇନାନ୍ସ, ଗ୍ରାଜୁଆଲି ଇଟ୍ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟେଡ ଡେଭଲପିଂ। ଆମେ ଗ୍ରାଜୁଆଲି ଇମ୍ପ୍ରୁଭ କରିକିରି 5 ନମ୍ବରକୁ ଗଲେ, ଯୋଉ ତଳେ ଥିଲେ ଏକଦମ ଶେଷରେ ଗରିବ ତମ ରାଜ୍ୟ, ସେଇଠୁ ଆମେ ଯାଇକିରି 5 ନମ୍ବର ଆଡକୁ ଉଠିଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ସମୟରେ। ବଟ୍ ଦ୍ୟାଟ୍ ୱାଜ ନଟ୍ ସଫିସିଏଣ୍ଟ। ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି କିଛି କରିପାରିଲେନି ସେମାନେ, କୌଣସି କାରଣରୁ। ସେଇଟା ତ ଆମେ ଆଉ ଜାଣିପାରୁନେ। ତେଣୁ ଇଣ୍ଡଷ୍ଟ୍ରି କିଛି ହେଇପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ ସେ ସମୟରେ। ସରକାର ରହିଲେ, ସିଏ ବି ଆହୁରି ଗୋଟେ କଥା ହେଲା, ଯାହାଟା ଆମେ ଡିସ୍କସନ କରୁଥିଲେ, ଆବସୋଲ୍ୟୁଟ ପାୱାର କରପ୍ଟସ୍ and absolute power corrupts absolutely। ତେଣୁ ଯାହା ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛେ, ଆମ ଗାଁ ଗହଳିରେ ଯୋଉ ଲୋକ ଖାଇବାକୁ ଭଲରେ ପାଉନଥିଲେ, ତାଙ୍କର ଏଇନା 3ଟା କାର। ଯୋଉ ଲୋକ ଖାଇବାକୁ ପାଉନଥିଲା 20 ବର୍ଷ ତଳେ, ତାଙ୍କର ଏଇନା 3ଟା କାର, 2ଟା 4ଟା ମୋଟର ସାଇକେଲ, ଇଲେକ୍ଟ୍ରିକ କାର ଠୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରି ସବୁ। କୁଆଡୁ ଆଇଲା ସେ ଟଙ୍କା? ବ୍ଲାକ୍ ମନି। ତେଣୁ ये ସବୁ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଏମଏଲଏ ଚାମଚା ନେତା, ଏ ସବୁ, so they have taken away the resources। ତେଣୁ ଖଣି ଖାଦାନ ଲୁଟି ଖାଇଲେ, ଦିନେ ରାତି ସବୁବେଳେ ଚାଲିଲା। ପୋଲିସ ତାଙ୍କର ପୋଲିସିଂ ଧରି ସବୁ ଚାଲିଲେ, ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଏମଏଲଏ ସବୁ ମୂଳରୁ ଏକଦମ ଚୂଳ ଯାଏ ସମସ୍ତେ ଦୁର୍ନୀତିରେ ବୁଡି ରହିଲେ। ଆବସୋଲ୍ୟୁଟ ପାୱାର, କରପସନ ମ୍ୟାକ୍ସିମମ୍ ହେଇଗଲା। ତେଣୁ ଲାଷ୍ଟକୁ ଲୋକମାନେ ଚେଞ୍ଜ କଲେ, ପଇସା ନେଇକିରି ବି ଲୋକ, ଗଭର୍ଣ୍ଣମେଣ୍ଟ ଚେଞ୍ଜ ହେଲା। ଦିସ୍ ଇଜ ନେସେସରୀ। ବାଣ୍ଟିଲେ ଟଙ୍କା। ରାତିରେ ଆସିକି ଇଲେକ୍ସନ ପୂର୍ବ ଦିନ ରାତିରେ, ତମର କେତେ ଲୋକ ଭୋଟର? ନା 5 ଜଣ, 2,500। ତମର କେତେ ଜଣ? 4 ଜଣ, 2,000। ବାଣ୍ଟିଲେ ଟଙ୍କା। ଟଙ୍କା ବାଣ୍ଟିକିରି ପାୱାରକୁ ଆସିଲେ। ମୁଁ ଥରଟା ୟା ପୂର୍ବ ଇଲେକ୍ସନରେ, ମୁଁ ଥରଟେ ଭୁବନେଶ୍ୱରରେ ଥାଏ ଡ୍ୟୁଟି, ପ୍ରିଜାଇଡିଂ ଅଫିସର। ସେ ତ ରାତିରେ ତ କାର ଲାଗିଲା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ଘରେ। କାର କଣ, ସେ ବଡ ଭ୍ୟାନ, ତା ଭିତରୁ ସବୁ ବଡ ବଡ ପ୍ୟାକେଟ କାଢିକି ଲୋକଙ୍କ ଘରେ ଦେଲେ। ତାପରେ ସେ ଲୋକ ଆସିକି ଖୋଜିଲେ ବୁଥରେ, ଯେ ଶଙ୍ଖ ଚିହ୍ନ କାହିଁ। ମୁଁ ତମ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ପିଲାଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ଡିସ୍କସନ କରୁଛି, କାହିଁ ଖୋଜିଲେ? ରାତିରେ ମାଲଟା ପାଇଛନ୍ତି କି ଏମିତି କଣ ଇମ୍ପ୍ରୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ହବ? ଆମକୁ 500 ଲେଖା ଟଙ୍କା ଦେଇଦେଲେ 5 ବର୍ଷ ପାଇଁ। 5 ବର୍ଷ ଭିତରେ ତମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯିବ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ କି ଏମଏଲଏଙ୍କ ପାଖକୁ, ସିଏ କଣ କହିବେ? ଯିବା ତ ସହଜ ନୁହଁ, ତାଙ୍କର କୁକୁର ଅଛି, ସେ ସବୁ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ନାହାନ୍ତି, ୟା ନାହାନ୍ତି, ତା ନାହାନ୍ତି। ଆମକୁ 500 ଦେଇକି ସେ 5,000 କୋଟି ଟଙ୍କା ଖାଇଲେ ସବୁ। ତେଣୁ ତା ବି ଆମେ ଇମ୍ପ୍ରୁଭମେଣ୍ଟ ଆମର ହେଲାନି। So we cannot prosper, we cannot achieve economic development even if we do not, if we do not have economic discipline। ତେଣୁ ଆମର ଇକୋନୋମିକ ଡିସିପ୍ଲିନ ନିହାତି ଦରକାର, ନହେଲେ ଆମେ କିଛି କରିପାରିବା ନାହିଁ। ତେଣୁ ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ ବଢିବ, ସରକାରଙ୍କର ମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଏମଏଲଏଙ୍କ ଭତ୍ତା ବଢିବ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଗରିବ ଲୋକଙ୍କର ସେମିତି ଗରିବ ହେଇଥିବେ। ଗରିବ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା ବଢୁଛି। ନମ୍ବର ଅଫ ରିଚ୍ ପିପୁଲ ଇନ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଇଜ ଇନକ୍ରିଜିଂ ଫାଷ୍ଟ। ନମ୍ବର ଅଫ ପୁଅର ପିପୁଲ ହାଜ ନଟ୍ ଡିକ୍ଲାଇନ୍ଡ। So this is the tyranny we can say। ତେଣୁ ଇଏ ହଉଛି ଆମର ଅବସ୍ଥା, ଯେ ଭାରତରେ ଧନୀ ଲୋକଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା ବଢି ବଢି ଚାଲିଛି, ଗରିବଙ୍କ ସଂଖ୍ୟା କମୁନି। ସରକାର ଏବେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ସେ ବିପିଏଲ କାର୍ଡ ଏଗୁଡାକ ସବୁ ବଦଳିବ, କାଢି ନିଆହବ ଲୋକଙ୍କଠୁ। ବି କିଛି ଲୋକ, ଧନୀ ଲୋକ ଯିଏ, ସେ ବି କାର୍ଡ ରଖିଛନ୍ତି, ପାଇଛନ୍ତି। ଯିଏ ପାଇବା କଥା ପାଇନାହାନ୍ତି। So these are very undesirable situation। So finally we can say that we cannot prosper, we cannot achieve economic development if we do not have economic discipline। That is the most important thing। So we have finished this chapter। I will send you the materials tomorrow। So if anyone having any type of doubt, You can ask me. If something is left untouched, I will go through the syllabus. If something is left untouched, then I will send you the material. Okay? କୁହ ପିଲେ କଣ କହିବାର ଅଛି ଆଉ? ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ସବୁ ମ୍ୟାଟେରିଆଲ୍ସ ଯୋଗେଇଦେବି ଯଦି କିଛି ଟପିକ୍ ହଁ ହଁ କହ ୟେସ୍ ହଁ କାହିଁକି ଶୁଭୁନି ପିଲେ କୁହ ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ସାର୍ ସବୁ ଟପିକ ରୁ ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ୍ କଣ କଣ ଆସିବ ଟିକେ ସେଣ୍ଡ କରିଥିଲେ ଭଲ ହେଇଥାନ୍ତା।
କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ୍
ହଁ
ଆଚ୍ଛା
ସାର୍
ହଉ ଠିକ ଅଛି
ମାନେ
ମୁଁ
ହୋଲ ସିଲାବସ ରୁ ମାନେ କୋଉଟା ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ରହିବ ଯୋଉଟା ମାନେ ଆମେ ମାନେ ପଢିକି ଲେଖିବାକୁ ପରଫେକ୍ଟ ହେଇଥିବ ସେଇ ଟାଇପ।
ଆଚ୍ଛା ହଁ ଠିକ ଅଛି ମୁଁ ତାକୁ ସେଗୁଡା ଦେଖିବି ପ୍ଲସ୍ ଆଉ ଯାହା ମ୍ୟାଟେରିଆଲ୍ସ ଏଗୁଡା ସବୁ ପଠେଇଦେବି ଆଉ
ହଁ
ଯଦି କୌଣସି ଯାହା ଟପିକ୍ ଅନଟଚଡ ହେଇ ରହିଥିବ ତାକୁ ବି ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ପଠେଇଦେବି ଏଇ କୋର୍ସରେ ଭିତରେ ଏଇ ସମୟ ଦିନେ ଦି ଦିନ ଭିତରେ ତଥାପି
ହଁ
ତା
ସାର୍
ଭିତରେ ତମର ଯଦି କୌଣସି କେତେବେଳେ ଡାଉଟ ଆସିଲା ମନକୁ ତାହେଲେ ତମେ କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ଫିଲ୍ ନ କରି ମତେ ଫୋନ କରି ପଚାରିବ କି ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ଛାଡିବ ମେସେଜ ହେଲା
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍
କିଛି ହଁ ହଁ ଠିକ ଅଛି ଆମର ତ ଆଉ ନାହିଁ ଆଜି ତ ଲାଷ୍ଟ କ୍ଲାସ ଅଛି ଏଇଟା ଆଉ କଣ ସୋ ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ଅଲ୍ ଆଇ
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍।
ୱିଶ ହଁ କୁହ କୁହ
ସାର୍
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ ହଁ ହଁ
ସାର୍ ଏଇ
କୁହ
ଯୋଉ ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ ଟା କେବେ ହଉଛି କି ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ ଟା
ମୁଁ ପିଲେ ଜାଣିନି ତମେ ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ନମ୍ବର ଦେବି ହେଲା ସେଇ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେମାନେ ଯୋଗାଯୋଗ
ସାର୍
କରିବ ହେଲା ହଁ ହଁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍
ମୁଁ ସେ ନମ୍ବର ଟା ତମକୁ ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପ ରେ ପଠେଇଦେବି ଯେ ତପନ ବାବୁଙ୍କ ନମ୍ବର ସେଇଠି ତାଙ୍କୁ ପଚାରିବ ସେ କହିଦେବେ ଆଚ୍ଛା ସେମାନେ ତ ଛାଡୁଛନ୍ତି କେତେବେଳେ କଣ ହବ ଫର୍ମ ଫିଲଅପ ଏସବୁ ଏଇ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ
ସାର୍ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ
ଦେଖିବ
କାଇଁ ମୁଁ ଏଡ୍
ତଥାପି
ହେଇନି ତ ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ
ଆଡ ହେଇଯାଅ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ଏଇ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ଆଡ ହୁଅ ତାପରେ କାଲିଠୁ ପୁଣି ଅନ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ମାଇକ୍ରୋ କାଲି ସେଟା କଣ ଅଛି ପିଲେ ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ବୋଧେ
କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟି ମେଥଡ ସାର୍
ହଁ
କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ
କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ
ମେଥଡ
ଟେକ୍ନିକ୍ସ ହଁ ହଁ ସେଇଠି ସବୁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ସେଇ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ଆଡ ହେଇକି ସେ କ୍ଲାସ କର ସେଇଟା ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ଥାଇପାରେ ତମକୁ
ସାର୍
ଦେଖିବ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍
ତଥାପି ମୁଁ ୟା ଭିତରେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯଦି କାହାର କିଛି ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଥାଏ କହିବ ଓକେ
ଗୋଟେ ଡାଉଟ୍ ଅଛି।
ହଁ କୁହ
ସାର୍ ଯୋଉ ଆମର ବହିରେ ଯୋଉଟା ପଠେଇଛି ଇଗ୍ନୋ ଯୋଉ ବୁକ୍ ଗୁରା ପଠେଇଛି ସେଥିରେ ଆନାଟିକାଲ
ହଁ
ମାନେ ଡିସକସନ ହବା ସହିତ ପ୍ଲସ୍ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ ବି ଡିସକସନ ହେଇଛି ତ ଆମେ
ହୁଁ
ଯୋଉ ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ଯୋଉ ମେଟେରିଆଲ ପାଇଛୁ ସେଇଟା ଆମକୁ ଇଜି ଲାଗୁଛି ଆମେ ଆପଣଙ୍କ
ଆଚ୍ଛା
ଇଏଟାକୁ ଲେଖିକି ଆଉ ସେଇ ଯୋଉ
ହଁ
ସେଥିରେ
ହଁ
ଯୋଉ
କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ। ସେଇ ଯୋଉ
ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ
ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ
ଡେରିଭେସନ
ଲେଖିକିରି ହଁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଡେରିଭେସନ ଲେଖିକିରି ଆମେ ଭୁଲ ଲେଖିବା ଭୁଲ ଭାଲ ହେଇଯିବ କଣ ଅସୁବିଧା so we can
ଆଜ୍ଞା
develop we can score good marks without highly use of mathematics also
ମାନେ ଆମେ ଟୋଟାଲ ସେ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଛାଡ଼ିଦେଲେ
quantitative
ହବ
technique ହଁ ହଁ କୁହ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
କିଛି ନାହିଁ ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲ ଲେଖ କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍
କାରଣ
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ
ମୋର ଯୋଉ ବହି ଗୁଡାକ ଅଳ୍ପ ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ ୟୁଜ ହେଇଛି ମ୍ୟାଟେରିଆଲ ଗୁଡା ତାକୁ ୟୁଜ କର କିଛି ହବନି
ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ଇଏ ଗୁରା
ଆଉ ଆଉ ପିଲେ କଣ କିଛି
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ
ସାର୍ ସେ
ପିଲେ ଆମେ
ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଟର୍ମ
ଫଣ୍ଡାମେଣ୍ଟାଲ
ଗୁଡା ଯୋଉଟା ବ୍ୟବହାର ହେଇକି ସାର୍ ଆମେ ଯଦି ସେଗୁଡା ବ୍ୟବହାର ନ କରୁ ତାହେଲେ ଆମକୁ ମାର୍କ ମିଳିବ।
ଆରେ ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଟର୍ମ ଆମେ ଲେଖିବା ଯେ କିନ୍ତୁ ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ କାଲକୁଲେସନ ଏଗୁଡା ଦରକାର ନାହିଁ କିଛି ଯୋଉଟାକୁ ଆମେ ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲି ପ୍ରୁଭ ଆମେ so we can use mathematics or theoretical explanation to explain a theory so if we are able to develop we are able to explain a theory in theoretical terms without making much mathematics what is wrong with it IIT ର ପ୍ରଫେସର ଦୁଃଖ ବନ୍ଧୁ ସାହୁ ଶୁଣିଥିବ ନାଁଟା ସେ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ର IIT ରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଇଞ୍ଜିନିୟରିଂ ଠୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ କରି ନାଇଜର IIT in every institution we have economics academics professionals ସେ କହୁଥିଲେ ଯେ it is though mathematics is used to make our explanation easier, we can score good marks without going through vivid mathematics. So minimum mathematical use କରିକି ବି ଆମେ ଭଲ ମାର୍କ ସ୍କୋର କରିପାରିବା। ଆମର ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ଟା important. Use of mathematics is not important. So what is important is our understanding. We must have thorough understanding to explain a concept.
ତ ସାର୍
ତମର
ଯାହା ବି କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ୍ ଆସିବ ଏକ୍ସାମ ରେ ସେଇଟା ଆମେ ଆମ ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ଉପରେ ଥିଓରି
ହଁ
ଆଉ
ହଁ ହଁ
ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଟର୍ମ ଆମେ ଯେମିତି ବୁଝିଛୁ ସେଇଟାକୁ ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ କରି ଲେଖିଲେ
ସେଇଟା
ଆମକୁ ମାର୍କ
ଲେଖିବ
ମିଳିଯିବ।
ଆଉ। ହଁ ହଁ।
ତାହେଲେ ସାର୍
ସେଟା
ଆମକୁ
ମୁଁ କହିଲି
ମାନେ ସେ ଯୋଉ
mathematics is
ଘୋଷିକି ଲେଖିବାର କୌଣସି ଆବଶ୍ୟକତା ନାହିଁ, ଆମେ ଯାହା ବୁଝିଛୁ
ନା ନା
ସେଇଟାକୁ ବି
ନା ନା
ଲେଖିଲେ ମାର୍କ
ହବନି।
ମିଳିବ।
ବାସ୍ ବାସ୍। ହଁ, ଯୋଉଟା ତମେ ବୁଝିଛ ତାକୁ ଲେଖ। ଘୋଷିକିରି ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଗୁରା ଖାଲି ଏମିତି ବାନ୍ତି କଲା ଭଳିଆ ହେଲେ ଅସୁବିଧା। ତେଣୁ ତମର ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଥିଲି
ସାର୍
ଇଗ୍ନୋ ବହି ସେ ଅତି ବେଶୀ ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ ହେଇଛି। ସେ ଯୋଉ ବାହାର ଲୋକ ସବୁ ତିଆରି କରି ଦଉଛନ୍ତି ବହି ଗୁଡା, ତେଣୁ ତାଙ୍କ ଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡାର୍ଡ ଦିଲ୍ଲୀ ୟୁନିଭରସିଟିରେ ଯୋଉ ପିଲାଙ୍କ ଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡାର୍ଡ, ଆମ ପିଲା ଆମେ ତ ମୂଳରୁ ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଟିକେ ୱିକ୍ ରହିଲେ। ତେଣୁ ଏଇଠି ଯେତେବେଳେ
ହଁ
ଲଦି
ସାର୍
ଦବ
ଆମର
ତମେ ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ
ସାର୍
ଜଣେ
ଆମର
କତିରେ କଣ ହବ?
ଏପଟେ ଗ୍ରାଜୁଏସନ ଲେଭେଲରେ ବି ଏତିକି ମାନେ ଆମେ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଯୋଉ କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଆଚ୍ଛା।
ଆପ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଡ ଅଛି ସେଥିରେ ବି ଆମେ ଏତେ ଥିଓରି ହିଁ ଲେଖିଛୁ ସିନା ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ ର ୟୁଜ ଏତେ କରିନୁ ସିଏ ଯେତେ
ହଁ
ଲେଖିଛି। ଆଉ ମାଇକ୍ରୋ
ଗ୍ରାଜୁଏସନରେ ଯୋଉ
ମାକ୍ରୋ ବି
ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ
ସେମ୍
ଅଛି,
ସାର୍।
ଗ୍ରାଜୁଏସନରେ ଯୋଉ କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ ଟେକ୍ନିକ୍ସ ଯୋଉ ତିନିଟା ପେପର, ଯୋଉଟା ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟାଟିଷ୍ଟିକ୍ସ, ତେଣୁ ସେଠି ତ ପଢେଇବାକୁ ଲୋକ ନାହାନ୍ତି ଅଧିକ ବହୁତ କଲେଜରେ। ତେଣୁ ସେ କେସରେ
ହଁ
ନିଶ୍ଚିତ
ସାର୍
ପିଲାଙ୍କର ଡାଉଟ ରହିବ। ଆଉ ପିଲା କଣ କରିବେ? ପିଲା କଣ ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ଘୋଷି ଦେବେ? ଥିଓରି ଆମେ ଓଡିଆ ପଲିଟିକାଲ ସାଇନ୍ସ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରି ଘୋଷିଦବା, ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ କଣ ଘୋଷିବ ନା ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ କଣ ଘୋଷିବ? ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ ଗୋଟେ ଏମିତି
ସାର୍
ବିଷୟ ଯୋଉଟା କି
ଆପଣଙ୍କ
ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ଦରକାର। କ୍ଲିୟର ଆମେ କନସେପ୍ଟ ଗୁଡା କ୍ଲିୟର ହବା ଦରକାର। ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ସେଟାକୁ ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲି କ୍ଲିୟର ହେଲେ କି ମାଥମେଟିକାଲି କ୍ଲିୟର ହେଲେ ସେଥିରେ କଣ ଯାଏ ଆସେ? ତେଣୁ ଆମେ ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ଗୋଟେ ବିଷୟ, ସେଟାକୁ ପ୍ରପର ଷ୍ଟାଗଫ୍ଲାସନ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ। ଇନଫ୍ଲାସନ ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟାଗଫ୍ଲାସନ ମିନ୍ସ ଓ ଇନସିଡେନ୍ସ ଅଫ ଇନଫ୍ଲାସନ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଷ୍ଟାଗନେସନ। ଇନଫ୍ଲାସନ ଆଉ ଷ୍ଟାଗନେସନ,
ସାର୍
ଇନଫ୍ଲାସନ ଅନଏମ୍ପ୍ଲୟମେଣ୍ଟ ଦିଟା ଯଦି ମିଶି ରହିଲା ଷ୍ଟାଗଫ୍ଲାସନ। ତେଣୁ ସବୁ ଟର୍ମ ଏଗୁଡାକ ଆମେ ବେଶୀ ତା ଦେହରେ ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ଆମର ରହିବା ଦରକାର। ହଁ କୁହ।
ସାର୍
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ।
ଆପଣ କଣ କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ ଆପ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଡ ପକେଇବେ କି?
ନା ନା ନା, ସେ ଆଉ ଜଣେ କିଏ ସାର୍ ଅଛନ୍ତି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଜ୍ଞା
କାରଣ
ସାର୍।
ମୋର ଗୋଟେ
କହୁଥିଲି
ବହି। ହଁ କୁହ।
ସାର୍ ଯୋଉ ଆପଣ ଯେମିତି ମାକ୍ରୋରେ ଯେମିତି ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଇଜି ବାଲା ନୋଟ୍ସ, ମାନେ ମାଇକ୍ରୋରେ ସେମିତି ଇଗ୍ନୋ ବୁକ୍ ରେ ସିଏ ସେମିତି ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଇଏ ଦେଇଛି, ସବୁ ଦେଇଛି। ତ ଆମେ ତାକୁ ଯଦି
ସାର୍ ଯିଏ
ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ କୁ
ପଢେଇଲେ
ଆଭଏଡ
ତାଙ୍କୁ କହେ
କରିବା।
ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ ତ ଶୁଣ ମାଇକ୍ରୋରେ ଯେ ସାରଙ୍କୁ କହିଲେନି ନା କିଛି ଆଉ କହିନ?
ବୁକ୍ ରୁ ହିଁ
ଆଚ୍ଛା ମୁଁ
ପଢୁଥିଲେ,
ଦେଖିବି।
ବୁକ୍ ରୁ
ମାଇ
ପଢୁଥିଲେ।
ଶୁଣ ମାଇକ୍ରୋରେ କଣ କଣ ଟପିକ ତମର ଟିକେ ବେଶୀ ଅସୁବିଧା ରହୁଛି,
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଯଦି ମତେ କହିଲେ ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ଦେଇଦେବି। ମୋର ବି ମାଇକ୍ରୋର ବହି ଅଛି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍ ଆପଣ ଟିକେ
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ।
ଯଦି ଦେଇଦିଅନ୍ତେ ଆମକୁ ଇଜି ହୁଅନ୍ତା, ମାନେ ଏଥିରେ ବହୁତ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଦେଇଛି ନା।
ନା ଶୁଣ,
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଠିକ ଅଛି, ତମକୁ କୋଉଟା ଟିକେ କଷ୍ଟ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଲାଗୁଛି ସେଇଗୁଟା ମତେ କହିଲେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ, ମୁଁ ସେଇଗୁଡା ମାଟେରିଆଲସ ଗୁଡା ମୋ ବହିରୁ ତମକୁ ପଠେଇଦେବି ଆଉ।
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଜ୍ଞା
ହେଲା।
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍।
ହଁ ସାର୍। ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କର କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ ଆପ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଡ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆପଣ ତ ଲେଖିଥିଲେ ବୋଧେ ଗୋଟେ ବୁକ୍,
ହଁ
ମୁଁ
ହଁ
ପଢିଛି।
ମୁଁ ଲେଖିଛି ଗୋଟେ। ହଁ
ହଁ ସାର୍ ସାର୍ ସେଥିରୁ ଟିକେ ମାନେ ଆମକୁ ଖାଲି ଗାଇଡ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ ଯେ ଆମେ କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ ଆପ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଡ ଯୋଉ ବୁକ୍ ଇଗ୍ନୋର ଦେଇଛି ସେ ବୁକ୍ କୁ ମାନେ ପ୍ରେଫର ନ କରିକି ଆମେ କୋଉ ୱେରେ ପଢିଲେ ତାର ଯୋଉ ଟପିକ ଗୁଡା ଅଛି
ହଁ
ସେଗୁଡା
ହଁ
ମାନେ ଯୋଉ କହୁନାହାନ୍ତି ସିରିଜ ୱାଇଜ ପଢିଲେ ଆମେ ମନେ ରଖିପାରୁ।
ହଁ ହଁ, ଧର ରିଲେସନ ଆଉ ଫଙ୍କସନ, ତାକୁ ମୁଁ କେମିତି ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ କରିବି, ଆଉ ଯିଏ କେମିତି ଅଲଗା ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ କରିବେ। ତେଣୁ ଆମେ କିନ୍ତୁ ସେଇଟା ଥରୋ ହବା ଦରକାର। ମାଟ୍ରିକ୍ସ, ଡିଟରମିନାଣ୍ଟ କଣ ସେ ଜିନିଷ, ତେଣୁ ତାକୁ ଆମେ ଯେତେ ସିମ୍ପଲି ଲେଖିପାରିବା, ସିମ୍ପଲି ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ କରିବା, ସେଇଟା ହଉଛି ଦରକାର। ସମସ୍ତେ ତ ସବୁ ଏକା ବହିରେ ସବୁ ଅଛି। ସେଇ ଜିନିଷକୁ ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରକାର କହିବି, ଆଉ କିଏ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ପ୍ରକାର କହିବେ। ତେଣୁ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ସୁଦ୍ଧା ତମର ମାଇକ୍ରୋଟା ପଢା ହେଇଯାଇଛି ଯେ ମାଇକ୍ରୋରେ କଣ କୋଉ ଟପିକ ଟା ତମକୁ ବେଶୀ ଟିକେ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ଲାଗୁଛି କହିଲେ ମତେ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ମୁଁ ସେଟା ହୁଏତ ଦେଇଦେବି ତମକୁ। ଆଉ କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟିରେ ନେକ୍ସଟ ଦେଖିବା। ଆଉ ବାକି ରହିଲା ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୋଥ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆନ ଇକୋନୋମିକ୍ସ, ତେଣୁ ସେଗୁଡା ବେଶୀ କଷ୍ଟ ତମକୁ ଲାଗିବନି, ଦେଖିବ ଆଉ।
ଯୋଉ ଗ୍ରୋଥ
ହଁ
ଆଣ୍ଡ
ସାର୍।
ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ସେଇଟା ଟିକେ
ହଁ
ଟେକ୍ନିକାଲି
ହଁ।
ଅଛି ମାନେ
ସେଇଟା ଟିକେ
ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ।
ସେମିତିଆ ମାଥମେଟିକାଲ ଟାଇପର ରହିବ, ଯେ ତାକୁ ବି ତମେ ସେମିତି ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲି ବି ଲେଖିବ, କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ।
ହେଲେ ସାର୍
ହେଲେ ଆମେ
ସାର୍ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ
ଇକ୍ୱେସନ
କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ
ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ
ଆପ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଡ
ଅଛି ନା ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ
ହୁଁ
ହେଲେ ସାର୍
ଗୋଟେ
କ୍ୱାଣ୍ଟିଟେଟିଭ
ଜିନିଷ ଧର
ଆପ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁଡ ଯୋଉ ରହୁଛି ସେଇଠି ସାର୍ ଆମକୁ କଣ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ମାନେ ପ୍ରୁଭ କରିବାକୁ ପଡିବ ନା ଏବେ ମନ ଗୋଟେ ମେଟ୍ରିକ୍ସ କିମ୍ବା ଡିଟରମିନେଣ୍ଟ ଦେଲା ତାର ଭ୍ୟାଲ୍ୟୁ କାଢିବାର ଅଛି ନା
ହଁ
କୋଉ
ଡିଟରମିନେଣ୍ଟ
ଉପରେ ସେଇଟା? କମାଇ ନା ସାର୍
ସେଗୁଡାକ
ବୁକ୍ ରେ
ସବୁ
ଥିଓରି ସହିତ
ଆପ୍ଲିକେସନ।
ସେ ମିକ୍ସ କରିକି ଦେଇଛି।
ହଁ ସେଟା ବା ଆପ୍ଲିକେସନ। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯୋଉ ତମେ ଏଇ ପିଜି ଷ୍ଟେଜରେ ପଢିବ ସେଟା ଆପ୍ଲିକେସନ। ହାଉ mathematics is applied to economics. How we can explain consumers equilibrium? How we can explain consumers equilibrium either mathematically or theoretically or graphically. So there are three methods of explaining consumers equilibrium. ଆମେ ସେଟାକୁ ଗ୍ରାଫିକାଲି ଦେଖେଇ ପାରିବା ଯେ ଆମେ କହିବା ଯେ consumers equilibrium is achieved or consumer remains gets maximum satisfaction when the budget line or price line of the consumer is tangent to the highest possible indifference curve. ଆମେ theoretically या କହିଲେ
ସାର୍
କାହିଁକି
ଏ
ନା
ଏ ଏ
at
ଦିଟା
this
ଜିନିଷ ଯୋଉ
point
ଆପଣ କହିଲେ ସାର୍ ସେଇଟା ତ ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲି ଆଉ ମ୍ୟାପିଂ ରେ ପଳଉଛି, ଗ୍ରାଫିକାଲି ଆମେ ବୁଝେଇ ପାରିବା। ହେଲେ ସାର୍ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲି
ହଁ
ତ ଆମକୁ ଶିଖା ହେଇନି, ମାନେ
ହଁ
ଆଗରୁ ତ
ଆରେ
ଆମେ
ଶୁଣ
ଗ୍ରାଜୁଏସନ ରେ ପଢିନୁ ଯେ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲି ଏଇ ଟର୍ମ ଟାକୁ କେମିତି
ହଁ
କାଢିବା।
ଏଇଆ ପରା mathematics କେମିତି କାଢିବା
ସାର୍
ଆମେ ଯୋଉ
ବୁକ୍ ରେ ମଧ୍ୟ
ଇକ୍ୱାଲିଟି
ଦେଇନି ଯେ ଏ ଟର୍ମ ଟାକୁ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲି କେମିତି ଲେଖିବା। ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ସେ ଖାଲି ବୁଝେଇ ଦେଇଛି ସେଟ୍ କଣ, ରିଲେସନ ଫଙ୍କସନ
ହଁ
କଣ,
ହଁ
ମେଟ୍ରିକ୍ସ କଣ, ଡିଟରମିନାଣ୍ଟ କଣ,
ନାଇଁ
କିନ୍ତୁ
ସେ
ସିଏ
ଯୋଉ
ରିଲେସନ ଦେଖେଇନି ଯେ ମାଇକ୍ରୋ ସହିତ ଆମର ଏ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ର କଣ
ହଁ ହଁ
ରିଲେସନ ଅଛି, ଆମେ କଣ କରିବା।
ଶୁଣ ଏଇ ଗୋଟା ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ସେଇଟା କହୁଛି ଯୋଉ at the point that point at which budget line is tangent to highest possible indifference curve. ଯୋଉଠି tangent ହେଲା ସେଇଠି କଣ ହଉଛି ନା ଦିଟା ଇକ୍ୱାଲିଟି, ଗୋଟେ ହଉଛି ଇକ୍ୱାଲିଟି ବିଟୱିନ୍ ମାର୍ଜିନାଲ ରେଟ୍ ଅଫ ସବଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନ and equality between price ratio. So slope of the budget line shows price ratio. ଆମେ ପ୍ରାଇସ୍ ରେସିଓ କେମିତି mathematically କାଢିବା। ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ହେଲା slope of the indifference curve shows marginal rate of substitution. That can be derived mathematically. So ଦିଟା ଯାକ ଯୋଉଠି MRS XY marginal rate of substitution of good X for good Y is equal to price ratio PX by PY. ଯୋଉଠି ସମାନ ହେଲା
ହଁ ସାର୍
ସେଇଟା
ସେଇଟା
ହଉଛି
ଫାଷ୍ଟ
ଇକ୍ୱିଲିବ୍ରିୟମ।
ମାଇକ୍ରୋରେ ଥିଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲି ଟର୍ମ ରେ ସେଇଟା ତ ଆଗେ କାଢା ହଉନଥିଲା।
ମାଥମେଟିକାଲି ଆମେ ତାକୁ ଡିରାଇଭ୍ କରିବା, ଗ୍ରାଫିକାଲି ପ୍ରୁଭ୍ କରିବା, ଥିଓରିଟିକାଲି ଲେଖିବା। ଏ ତିନି ପ୍ରକାରର ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲାନେସନ ଯୋଉଟା ତମକୁ ଭଲ ଲାଗିଲା ସେଇ ଅନୁସାରେ ଲେଖିବ। ଆଉ ଟିକେ ମିନିମମ୍ ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ର ୟୁଜ କଲେ ବି ଭଲ। ସିଏ ସମସ୍ତେ ଆଜିକାଲି କିଏ ଭାବିବ ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ପିଲା ଜାଣିନାହାନ୍ତି, ତେଣୁ ଯେତିକି ଆମେ ଲେଖିପାରିବା ସେତିକି ମାଥମେଟିକ୍ସ ୟୁଜ କରିବା, କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ନାହିଁ।
ହେଲେ ସାର୍ ଏଇଠି କେମିତି ଆମେ ମ୍ୟାଥମେଟିକାଲି ଲେଖିବା, ଆପଣ ଯୋଉଟା କହିଲେ ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରାଇସ୍ ରେସିଓ ଆଉ ଏମଆର
ହଁ ପ୍ରାଇସ୍
ଏକ୍ସ
ରେସିଓ
ୱାଇ ଏମଆର ଏଫ ଏକ୍ସ ୱାଇ।
price ratio is equal to px by py. So how can it derive it? ତାକୁ derive କରିବ କେମିତି? Suppose we have a money income equal to m. Price of x is px. So how much quantity we are able to purchase if we spend all our income on x? M by px. If we spend all our income on good x with its price as px, we are able to purchase how much quantity? M divided by px. Similarly, if we spend all our income M on y, we are able to buy M by py. We cannot purchase x and y by spending all our income on it. We are able to purchase, in this case, we are able to purchase either x or y. ଆମେ ସବୁ ଟଙ୍କା ଯଦି x ଉପରେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିଦେଲା ଆଉ y ଉପରେ ଖର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିବାକୁ ଆମ ପାଖେ ପଇସା ନାହିଁ, ଅଛି କି? So either we can purchase x or y. So that means m by px is equal to m by py. So ଏଇ ଟାଇପ ରେ ଆମେ ତାକୁ ଫାଇନାଲି ପହଞ୍ଚିବା ଯେ mrs xy is equal to px by py। ତେଣୁ ମୁଁ ଆଗ ଦେଖିବି ତମର ସେ ଯୋଉ ମାଇକ୍ରୋରେ କଣ ସବୁ କୋର୍ସ ଅଛି ଦେଖିଦେବି ଟିକେ। ତମେ ବି ଦେଖ କଣଟା ତମକୁ ଟିକେ ଡିଫିକଲ୍ଟ ଲାଗୁଛି ମୁଁ ତମକୁ ସେଠି କହିବି ହେଲା। ଦେବି ତମକୁ କିଛି ମ୍ୟାଟେରିଆଲସ ଆଉ।
ହଁ ସାର୍
Thank you, sir.
ହଁ ସାର୍
ହଉ
ଠିକ ଅଛି
ଠିକ ଅଛି।
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍।
Thank you, sir.
ହଉ ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ
Thank you,
ଭେରି
sir.
ମଚ୍।
Thank you, sir.
ଭେରି ଗୁଡ୍ ରେଜଲ୍ଟ। ଓକେ ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ।
WhatsApp link କାହା ପାଖରେ ଅଛି କି?
ଟିକେ ରୁହ ଛାଡି ଦଉଛି।
ହଁ ଟିକେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ରେ ଛାଡି ଦିଅନ୍ତୁ। ଏଇଥିରେ ଛାଡ଼ିଦେଲେ ମୁଁ ଜଏନ୍ କରିଯିବି।
ଲିଙ୍କ ରେ କ୍ଲିକ୍ କରି ଆପଣ ଦେଖି ନିଅନ୍ତୁ। ଆଗରେ ଫାଷ୍ଟ ଲିଙ୍କଟାରେ କ୍ଲିକ୍ କରିବୁ ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପକୁ ନେଇଯିବ।